Warning, this fic contains many dark and adult themes. For the full list provided by the author, please check the description below and proceed with caution. Welcome back, this is Veritaserum by Severitus 812, JessalynMichele, Book 3 of Harry Potter and 7 Years of Chaos. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy, and subscribe for future stories. Please check the description for a full list of tags, and the link to drop a kudos for the original author. With that out of the way, let's get started. Chapter 14, Bat, Rat and Dog. During the Christmas feast, Severus watched as his ward slunk inside and sat sullenly in his corner seat of the Slytherin table. Potter picked at his meal with his left hand, his right hand having the very faintest shimmer of a glamour on it. It was an excellent glamour. Severus doubted whether any other professor could spot it. Of course, no other professor had risked their lives for over a year on their ability to identify the smallest of changes in or on a person. It didn't take a genius to piece together Potter's desperation to be struck with the way he was now eating with the incorrect hand. Potter had found a way to get the injuries he desperately wanted earlier. Severus only hoped it was a minor fleeting whim and not a sign of a chronic issue. He needed to go see the mind healer again and find out how to address these many rapid changes happening in Potter's behavior. And judging from the increased level of despondency his ward was showing, he needed to go soon. Severus awoke the next morning at 4 o'clock to a small grey owl frantically pecking directly on his office door with a single parchment attached to its leg. Who the hell would send a letter at this time of day? He plucked the parchment from the owl and watched bemused as it immediately flew away. Snape, Harry is in danger. You have to make sure he's safe from himself. Severus didn't hesitate to head towards the Slytherin dorms. He knew the greatest threat to Potter's continued life was the child himself. He wasn't blind. If someone believed Potter was in danger, then Severus would check on him. It was an easy decision. Severus continued reading as he quickly made his way to the dormitory. I was not the secret keeper. Pettigrew was. You have to get Weasley's rat. If you require proof, first ask Remus what Pettigrew's animagus was. But get the rat, don't let it escape. Ask him about what exactly happened that Halloween night. You have nothing to lose. Don't do it for me, do it for Harry. He can't handle the Dementors any longer. Help Harry find the rat. Severus stared at the parchment in momentary shock, before carefully putting it in his pocket. Potter first. He went directly to the boys' dorm, and reassured himself to see Potter was curled in a ball on his bed, sound asleep with Miss Lovegood curled beside him, safe and alive. He cast a quick charm to assess Potter's vitals, and felt his shoulders relax as the rapidly flashing numbers assured him of Potter's stable heart rate, blood pressure, and respiratory rate. Then, despite logic telling him that the letter was a prank, or a desperate attempt of a desperate man to evade the Dementor's kiss, Severus glanced around the room and saw a small grey lump curled up on Weasley's chest. Stupefy, he murmured as he stunned the rat. He lifted it by its tail and stared into its now frantic beady black eyes. Who are you? He murmured softly. Severus placed a ward on Potter to alert him as soon as the child awoke, and pocketed the rat as he made his way to Lupin's office. If Severus was now awake at 4 am with a mystery on his hands, he'd be damned if he wasn't going to get some answers from Lupin. Severus pounded on Lupin's office door until the wolf answered. Severus, he mumbled through a huge yawn. What's going on? What time is it? Severus pushed his way past Lupin to enter the office. He wasn't going to discuss this out in the hall. He placed multiple wards on the space, while Lupin watched curiously before turning to the wolf. Peter Pettigrew, was he an animagus? The rapid paling of Lupin's face was answer enough. How did you know? As soon as the pieces clicked in his mind, Severus got his wand out and shoved it into Lupin's neck. You brain-dead moron, he hissed. They all were, weren't they? What was Pettigrew's form? Why does it matter? Lupin said in a choked voice as he attempted to back away from Severus' wand. Peter is dead. What was his form? A rat, Peter was a rat, Lupin cried. James was a stag. Severus would have scoffed at Potter Sr.'s form, the spiritual representation of maturity, grace, and kindness, if Lupin's next words did not send waves of icy water of fear through him. And Sirius was a dog. A dog, Severus repeated. Describe it, now Lupin. I don't know, just a dog, a black dog. Can we get a dog, please? Did you hear me say that I think the one we found was starving? That black dog from Nocturne Alley was here. He'd seen Potter with a dog. When he surreptitiously checked on his ward during some of his frequent trips outdoors, Severus saw as Potter curled up on the ground with a black dog and poured his feelings to the creature. Severus stared at Lupin, finally taking into account the true value of the man before him. You said nothing. You knew Black could transform into a dog this whole time, and you said nothing. Why does it matter? Lupin cried. Why does any of it matter now? Peter and James are dead. Sirius, well, I doubt he's using his form anymore. You moron! Severus shoved his wand a little further into Lupin's throat, fearless of the wolf as his fury overtook him. Potter has befriended a large, black dog this summer. It followed him to Hogwarts. Lupin's already pale face went at least 2 shades whiter at that. His scars stood out starkly in contrast. I didn't know, he said. I heard him say on the train that he found a dog, but if it was Sirius then he would have killed him by now. Unless Pettigrew was the secret keeper. Go get Albus immediately, Severus said in his most dangerous tone. Do not stop for any Merlin-damned reason. Bring him here immediately. Severus gives Lupin no credit for the hastened pace he took as he scrambled out the door for Albus' office. Severus would give Lupin no credit for the remainder of his pathetic life as shortened as he personally could ensure it to be. Severus stepped up to Lupin's flue and threw a pinch of powder into the flames. Amelia Bones' cottage. As he readjusted in the flue, he realized it was not yet even 5 o'clock. Amelia was likely asleep. Everyone is waking up early today, he thought to himself. Madame Bones, Amelia. Severus, in his fury and fear, let all sense of decorum leave him as he shouted through the cottage for Amelia to wake up. Thankfully, Amelia came rushing into her sitting room not minutes later, pulling a dark blue set of robes on overtop her pajamas. Severus, goodness, what is going on? I need you immediately in your official capacity as head of the DMLE, Severus said. Can you bring a few auras and meet me in Lupin's defense classroom? Of course, Amelia said quickly, requiring no immediate explanation. I'll have Kingsley and his partner apparate here and we'll step through, keep the flue open. Severus nodded and pulled his head out. If Weasley's rat was not an animagus, he hoped they would arrest Lupin for withholding information relevant to an ongoing investigation before finding Potter's beloved, trusted and spoiled dog and taking it into custody as well. Mavis, he called. Pop. Mr. Snoop is calling for Mavis, what can? Severus cut Mavis off, as he had limited time and even less patience. Potter could scold him for being rude to his acquaintance later. Go to my office and bring me a vial of Veritaserum, he said quickly. Then go sit in Potter's dorm and stay with him until I release you. He does not need to know you are there. Get me immediately if there are any problems. Understand? Mavis must have sensed his impatience, because he barely nodded before popping away. Expecto patronum, he called up his patroness quickly. Lucius, I understand it is early. Come through the flue to Remus Lupin's office in Hogwarts immediately. I believe I will require a witness, and you in your role as a barrister. After sending off his fox, Severus plucked the clear vial that popped up in front of him, just as Lupin returned with Albus behind him. Severus, Albus said, his blue eyes focused and untwinkling. Remus said there was an emergency. Were you aware the Black, Pettigrew and Potter were animagi? Severus demanded, watching Albus carefully for any tell. If Albus knew that his ward was in danger from a dog and neglected to tell Severus, this would be both Severus and Potter's last day in the castle. Albus turned to Lupin, who had the audacity to look ashamed, before turning back to Severus. I was not aware, he said gravely. Severus was relieved to see that it appeared to be nothing but the truth. Do you believe that is how Sirius has evaded capture? I do, Severus said. He reached into his pocket and handed Albus the letter he received from SOB, who could only be Sirius Orion Black, but that is not the problem currently. Albus accepted the letter and read it quickly before handing it back to Severus. Harry has been in contact with Black, he asked. Unintentionally, Severus sneered in Lupin's direction. Potter adopted a dog, I believe he has been, confiding in it. And oh, the child was going to be furiously hurt to discover this betrayal. Albus turned to Lupin, and even from the other side of the room, Severus, could feel the fury he exuded in this moment. Good. Did you know they switched secret keepers, Remus? Did you know Sirius was on the grounds? No, Lupin denied quickly, cowering slightly in the face of Albus, overwhelmingly cold fury. Switch secret keepers. They didn't tell me if they did. Lupin's pathetic speech was interrupted by Amelia, Shacklebolt, and a young witch Severus once taught, Nymphadora Tonks, stepping through the flue. What's going on? Amelia said immediately. Before Severus could answer, Susan Bones tripped and stumbled out of the flue. Sorry, she glanced politely around the room despite Amelia's exasperated sigh. Morning, Professor, Susan said to Severus with a bright smile before looking coldly at Albus and Lupin and turning her nose up at them both as she turned back to Amelia. This looks important. I'll just go find Harry, shall I? Shacklebolt chuckled as Susan waltzed right out of the office without a response, undoubtedly headed to the dungeons. She's a fiery one, Amelia, he said in his deep, smooth voice. I know, Amelia sighed, and rubbed her face in a weary way that Severus himself was becoming accustomed to as a fellow guardian of an unrepentant teenaged menace. Now what's going on here? Severus held the letter he received out to Amelia as the flue flared to life once more and Lucius joined them, impeccably dressed despite the early hour. Severus, he said, inclining his head respectfully. Lucius, thank you for coming, he replied cordially. Is Harry all right? Amelia asked quickly, her eyes anxious as she looked to Severus. He is, he assured her. Amelia turned a steely gaze at Lupin. Is Sirius Black an animagus? She had clearly drawn the same connection that Severus himself had. Black, Lucius mouthed to Severus. He shook his head at him and gestured towards the note that Shacklebolt was now holding. I will go retrieve the rat, Shacklebolt said as he handed the note to Lucius. No need, Severus pulled Weasley's rat out of his pocket and held it up for everyone to see. I went to check on Potter and saw the rat. I am unsure if this is some elaborate prank or an attempt of a foolish and desperate man to evade the Dementor's kiss, but Severus hesitated and looked towards Albus, who nodded sagely at him. But it is better to be sure, Albus said. You've done excellent, Severus. At one point in his life, Albus' praise would have meant the world to him. Or a Tonks, go to the ministry immediately and pull Sirius Black's file. I want every single scrap of paper that even has his name on it, Amelia said as she took charge of the situation. Tell Melinda to alert the minister that we have an unfolding unknown situation at Hogwarts regarding Black. At a minimum, she shot a fury-filled look towards Lupin. We have new information that has came to light regarding his escape and evasive measures. Yes, ma'am, Tonks said, as she used Lupin's flue to return to the DMLE department of the ministry. Kingsley ward the office against escape or eavesdroppers, Amelia said. Yes, ma'am. Shacklebolt raised his cherry-brown wand and waved it in a complicated series of twists and turns as Severus felt the magic take place in the room. Severus the rat, if you will. Amelia held her hand out, her mouth set in a firm line. Severus handed her Weasley's rat, unsure as to what he was hopping for. Amelia placed the rat on the desk, and the 5 wizards watched silently as she murmured the animagus revealing spell and tapped the rat with her wand. It was like watching a sped-up film of a growing tree. A head was shooting upward from the ground, limbs were sprouting. A moment later, a man was standing in front of the desk where the rat had been, cringing and wringing his hands. Peter! Pettigrew, a now grubby and shrunken man, who scarcely resembled the plump blonde boy of Severus' youth, frantically looked around the room before his beady eyes landed on Lupin. Remus, Pettigrew's voice was squeaky and hoarse from disuse. My old friend. You're alive, how? Severus would not take his eyes off the man in front of him, though he would desperately like to scoff in Lupin's direction at the weepy tone the man had adopted. Pettigrew looked at Amelia, Shacklebolt, Severus, and Lucius before visibly flinching when he looked in Albus' direction. And that reaction merited a quick look. Severus glanced at Albus and saw the man's eyes alight with an indignantly cold fury that Severus had only seen once in his life when he begged for the protection of Lily. You are Peter Pettigrew, Amelia snapped, stepping into Pettigrew's immediate line of sight. Why yes, Pettigrew squeaked. B. Severus, do you have Veritaserum? Amelia said sharply, ignoring Pettigrew's squeaks of discomfort. I do, Severus handed her the vial and Amelia looked over at Shacklebolt and Lucius. Lucius, will you swear in as a witness to an official interrogation? I will, Lucius said, drawing himself up and looming down at Pettigrew with disgust. Albus, Amelia said without turning away from Pettigrew. Of course, Amelia, Albus said from behind Severus, his voice even and sure. Kingsley dictate the notes. Amelia straightened her shoulders as she began speaking. Let the record show that on the 26th of December in the year of 1993, at 0513, I, Amelia Suzette Bones, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, am standing in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry preparing to interrogate a suspect. Witness, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Also witness, Lucius Abraxas Malfoy, barrister for Britain's Wixen Public and board member for Hogwarts Board of Education. In attendance, Remus John Lupin, Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Also in attendance, Severus Tobias Snape, Potions Master at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Notes taken by Kingsley Erickson Shacklebolt, Aura for the British Ministry of Magic. Amelia took a deep breath. Are you Peter Allen Pettigrew? Pettigrew squealed and twisted his hands, unanswering. Let the record show that at 0516, I am administering 4 drops of Veritaserum to the suspect, believed to be Peter Allen Pettigrew as pursuant to National Law 521, subsection 17, item 8. Amelia flicked her wand at Pettigrew and placed a non-verbal stunner on the man. Open, she demanded, brandishing the vial of Veritaserum. Remus, please, arg. As Pettigrew had opened his mouth to plead his case to Lupin, Amelia calmly dropped 4 vials of the potion on his tongue. She then conjured a chair and pushed him down into it. Severus watched as Pettigrew's eyes took on a glassy appearance, his mouth going slack, and his incessant cringing stilled. What is your name? Amelia asked. Peter Pettigrew, Pettigrew murmured, his voice appropriately dulled from the potion. What is your date of birth? The 8th of August in 1960. I am satisfied that the serum is working appropriately and will continue with the interrogation, Amelia declared. Severus glanced over at the noise of another arrival and saw Tonks stepping out of the flue, her hands carrying a single thin file. Amelia had not even glanced up at the noise, though Shacklebolt had stilled his quill for a moment to acknowledge Tonks. You are an animagus? Amelia asked. Yes, Pettigrew murmured. How long have you been an animagus? Amelia asked with a sharp glance behind her at Lupin. 18 years. They accomplished this in 5th year. If Severus were not so disgusted, he may have been begrudgingly impressed. Where have you been since the time of your presumed death, the 1st of November in the year 1981? I've been transformed, Pettigrew said in the same monotone voice. I've lived as a pet rat to magical families. I've been hiding. Hiding from whom? Amelia asked sharply. My old friends, followers of the Dark Lord, followers of the light. Everyone thought I was dead, and that's the way I wanted it to stay. Severus could detect the slightest tinge of anxiety to Pettigrew's voice. His fears must have been great if they were able to push through the serum to show themselves. What exactly happened the night of James and Lily Potter's deaths? Amelia asked. Severus inched forward slightly, unwilling to miss a single syllable of the tale. I told the Dark Lord where to find them. Lupin let out a sharp gasp that went ignored. I knew I'd have to hide until his victory was complete. I'd betrayed Dumbledore's side and his followers would kill me. Severus was terribly amused to hear Pettigrew describe the Order of the Phoenix as Albus, followers. Though the rat was not incorrect, he knew that is not how Albus views them. So I hid and waited. Then I heard that baby Harry survived and the Dark Lord had been vanquished. I knew I'd have to run for it. I tried. I got to the Muggle world, but Sirius found me. He confronted me. There were people all around listening. I tried to make it sound like Sirius had betrayed them. I only had one chance to disappear with my life and I took it. I blew apart the street and transformed. I slipped into the sewer and I waited. Nobody spoke for a moment. Nobody breathed. 13 years ago, they had all been wrong. Who killed the Muggles on the 1st of November in 1981, at approximately 0036? Amelia asked, as if she could not believe it. I did, Pettigrew said immediately. Black had been innocent. Severus caught Lucius' eye and he knew that his friend's face was surely reflecting back his own shock. Who else, aside from Sirius Black, knew of your betrayal and your scheme? Amelia demanded with a sharp look towards Lupin. Lupin stood, clutching Albus' arm, his mouth agape and his eyes misting over. Lupin was a coward, a sneak, but he had no idea that Pettigrew had done this. Perversely, Severus almost wished Lupin had known this whole time. If Black was innocent, which he seemed to be, it would be an undeniable boon for Lupin to be guilty of something more than being a coward. No one, Pettigrew said, crushing Severus' hopes. The Death Eaters didn't know I was one of them. The Order didn't know I was on the other side. Nobody knew when I disappeared. Amelia jabbed her wand in Pettigrew's direction and bound him with heavy chains to the chair, before an additional flick put him in an enchanted slumber. Tonks Black's file. Tonks hesitantly handed Amelia the file, avoiding eye contact with the witch who was clearly suppressing her fury. This is it, Amelia snapped, flicking through the 3-paged folder. A copy of his arrest, a report of his apprenticeship in the ministry, and a copy of his escape. She glared at Tonks. Where is the rest of it? Court transcripts, eyewitness accounts, any of it? That was it, ma'am, Tonks said. I checked, there was no court hearing. Crouch had him sent straight to Azkaban from the scene, and he's been there up until this past summer. Fucking incompetent idiots, Amelia muttered under her breath, showing the room where the young Miss Bones got her vocabulary. Not that Severus could judge. Potter picked up most of his phrases from Severus himself. Severus, how do I get in touch with Black? Amelia asked. I do not know, he said truthfully. Amelia stared at him for a moment, before turning to Shacklebolt. Turn the record off, she said. She turned back to Severus. Off the record now, how do I get in contact with Sirius Black? I believe he has been loitering on the grounds, posing as a stray dog. Here he shot Lupin another withering look. But aside from sending my ward out to retrieve him, which we absolutely will not be doing, I am unsure how to communicate with him. Albus, Lupin, any ideas? She said, apparently trusting Severus' word. I could send him a Patronus if he believes he will not be arrested or kissed, Albus said thoughtfully, but the presence of the Dementors may keep him away. Severus gave a subtle look of, do something you political mastermind, to Lucius. If there were ever an opportunity to rid the grounds of the Dementors, this was it. Perhaps we could have the minister remove the Dementors, as a sign of peace to Black, said Lucius. It would likely make him more amenable to speaking with you, madame. Shacklebolt and Amelia exchanged significant looks. We could try, Amelia murmured quietly, with this new evidence. The manhunt for Black should shift priorities. Shacklebolt picked up her train of thought. I believe it is time you summon the minister. Amelia flicked her wand at once and summoned her silver lemur. Your presence is needed immediately at Hogwarts, minister. It is an emergency regarding the Black case. She glanced around the room and grimaced before adding, a suspect has been detained. Remus Lupin's office, if you will. She sent the lemur off, and they all stood silently as they waited. Severus felt his wand vibrate in his robe pocket, and cursed Potter for waking at the worst possible time. Excuse me, he said, turning his back to the inquiring eyes. He summoned his own Patronus, and ignored the looks of amusement on Lucius and Albus' faces, and the blatant curiosity on Lupin. Harry, I'm in an incredibly important meeting at the moment. If you and your friends would like to eat breakfast in your dorm, I need to speak with you once my business is concluded. He hesitated, thinking of Black's warning, yet conscious of the shameless eavesdroppers. I believe I have news you will find of interest, and would like to speak about it with you once my meeting has concluded. Call upon your acquaintance if my presence is needed for any reason. He hoped that whatever danger Potter posed to himself would be dampened by his natural curiosity at the interesting news Severus spoke of. He also hoped that Potter's friends would have the wherewithal to decipher his order to call Mavis if Potter attempted to hurt himself in any way. You've gone soft, Lucius murmured with an annoying quirk to his lips. I would gladly take the opportunity to prove the falsehood of your words, Lucius, he said sullenly. Potter had made him soft, but he could still kill Lucius with both eyes closed. Lucius just chuckled before the flue flared to life and Fudge all but lunged out of it. He had clearly came straight from his bed, as he was wearing a violet nightshirt with his pinstriped robes hastily thrown atop of it. The leader of the British Wixen World ladies and gentlemen. Severus didn't know whether to be amused or terrified at the man's obvious incompetence. Madame Bones, you said you caught Black. The minister was bouncing eagerly on the balls of his feet, His look of joy diminished quickly as he looked around the room and realized that Black was not in attendance. "What's going on here?" he said. "I thought you caught Black." "Apologies, Minister," Amelia said cordially. "We have not captured Black. We have hit a snag in the case." A snag? Fudge's face of disappointment was nearly comical. Lucius certainly thought so if his smirk aimed at Severus was any indicator. "What snag?" Fudge demanded. Amelia stepped to the side, allowing Fudge to see Pettigrew seated behind her. "This snag," she said solemnly. "Aura Shacklebolt, give the minister the interview transcripts." "Who is that?" Fudge was squinting at Pettigrew as he accepted the parchment from Shacklebolt. When nobody responded, Fudge scowled and turned to the transcript he held. "Peter Pettigrew." His eyes flew up and looked incredulously at the bound man. "It appears as if tales of his death were greatly exaggerated," Albus said. The old fool sounded as if this were all terribly amusing. "What?" Fudge yelped, but Albus Black. "Please read, sir," Shacklebolt suggested calmly. Of course," Fudge muttered as his eyes scanned the parchment in his hand. "Innocent?" Fudge gasped when he looked up again from the parchment. He looked around at the grim and solemn faces desperately, as if hoping someone would laugh and make this into a joke, instead of the nightmare Severus considered it to be. "It appears so," Shacklebolt confirmed, his deep voice calm and soothing, "though we will need to interview Black to confirm." But Black's missing," Fudge stammered. "He escaped." Lucius gave Severus a subtle look. The slight raise to one of his brows was a clear question. "Do you want me to step in?" Severus sighed and nodded slightly. If clearing Black's name was the price of ridding Potter of the Dementors, so be it. Seeing Pettigrew kissed in his stead would be a balm to the wound caused by Black's innocence. "We believe Black would respond to a summons if the Dementors were cleared from the grounds," Lucius said, placing a steady hand on Fudge's shoulder. "All you have to do, Cornelius, is alert the Dementors that their presence is no longer required, and we can speak with Black and clear this whole thing up." Fudge looked up at Lucius, as a child would look to their gidding mother. "Clear the Dementors, but you believe this?" "Do you believe Pettigrew was able to outsmart the Veritaserum and admitted to the killings to somehow aid Black?" Amelia asked. "Well, no," Fudge blustered, "but well, this is going to make the ministry look terrible if it gets out, public opinion and all, you know." Severus very nearly scoffed at the man's care for public opinion. "Imagine how impressed the public will be with you when you clear the name of an innocent man who was wrongfully imprisoned by your predecessor," Lucius said in his oily tone that Severus knows he saves for kissing the arses of powerful allies. "Crouch through the current Lord Black in prison without so much of a trial, but you can fix it." Lucius rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "I can't imagine how this will hurt Crouch's career, but it can only boost yours." Fudge nodded his head, along as Lucius painted the picture he wanted. "I suppose that we do need to speak with Black," he said, eyes eager now. "We can clear the Dementors and see if he presents himself for interrogation." "Wonderful," Albus clasped his hands together. "We can go alert the Dementors together then, shall we, Cornelius?" Yes, I suppose we should," Fudge said with a slight shiver before glancing at Pettigrew's still form again. "Madame Bones, Shacklebolt, you'll keep the suspect." "Of course," Amelia said easily. "We will be here when you return." As soon as the door closed behind the two men, Tonks snorted. "Suppose he doesn't trust me then," she laughed. "The hair does not inspire confidence," Lucius said with a pinched look at the girl's pink spiked hair. Severus ignored them and took the opportunity to check on Potter. "Mavis. Puppy. Mr. Snoop is calling for Mavis." Severus fruitlessly applied pressure to the center of his forehead to stave off his impending migraine, as more than one person snickered behind his back at the elf's title for him. "What is Potter doing?" he asked as quietly as possible with a bleeding werewolf in the room. "Master Potter is in his bed and is writing a letter," Mavis said quickly. "Master was not eating breakfast." "Very well, continue to watch him out of sight. Get me immediately, no matter who is around or what I am doing. If anything happens, understand?" "Yes, Mr. Snoop," Mavis bobbed his head, then disappeared with another soft pop. "You have a house elf babysitting Potter?" Lucius asked. Severus scowled at him, as if Lucius had not left Draco under the care of house elves many times when he was younger. "You think Black's warning has merit?" Amelia asked gently. I think the sooner the Dementors are cleared from the grounds, the better, Severus said, unwilling to further discuss his ward's difficulties. The room lapsed into a tense atmosphere. Lupin had moved to a chair and was alternating between cradling his head in his hands and shooting death glares at Pettigrew. Tonks and Shacklebolt were quietly discussing the legalities that would need explored to clear Black's name. Amelia, Lucius and himself just stood in silence, each contemplating how these events could possibly be true, though none doubting it for a moment. Eventually, after nearly an hour of the thick and tense atmosphere threatening to suffocate them, the office door was thrown open and Albus entered, victory clear in every line on his face. "The Dementors are gone," he said with a twinkling smile towards Severus as Cornelius entered the office behind him. "I believe you can now call for Sirius." "Me?" Severus said, surprised. "I believe Black is more likely to respond to a summons from you or Lupin." "Ah, but he didn't reach out to me or Remus, did he?" Albus said with another twinkling smile. Lupin let out a soft noise, as if wounded that Black did not contact him. "Fine," Severus said shortly. Severus thought of Potter swearing in the middle of the corridor in Parseltongue and fought down a smirk as he called up his patroness. "I received your note. Your presence is required in the defense office. The Dementors have cleared the school." It was as cordial as Severus was willing to be to the man who used to make him miserable as a hobby. "You could have mentioned that he isn't being arrested," Lupin snarled. "I could have," Severus agreed lightly. "Pity you weren't the one delivering the message." "Enough," Albus said firmly as Lupin opened his mouth with a retort. Severus' message was adequate. "What now?" Lupin asked. "Now we wait," Albus said with a happy little hum. Perhaps it would be better if we moved Pettigrew to holding before Black shows up," Tonks suggested hesitantly. "I mean, didn't he already try and kill him once?" "Of course," Cornelius said promptly. "Best not to incite trouble, eh? Why don't you and Shacklebolt take Pettigrew and we'll let Amelia interview Black if he shows up?" Amelia nodded at her auras behind Cornelius' shoulder, giving approval for the plan. "As you wish," Shacklebolt said with a slight bow of his head to the minister. Shacklebolt and Tonks each took an arm of the unconscious traitor and led him to the flue. Tonks went first, calling out ministry holding cells, before Shacklebolt followed with a firm grip on Pettigrew's arm. "Tea anyone?" Albus said merrily. He waved his wand and conjured chairs for everyone aside from Lupin, who slumped into his desk chair. Severus sat next to Lucius and prepared himself to wait. Albus waved his wand again and conjured a table with 7 tea sets and a gratuitous amount of pastries, fruit and biscuits. "Eat up," Albus said, smiling brightly at them all. Severus grabbed a cup of tea, more for something to do while he waited than any real desire to eat or drink. Albus drugged Cornelius into a discussion of a new outfitting retailer in Diagon Alley, while Lucius, Amelia, and Severus exchanged impatient glances. Lupin mostly stared sorrowfully into his lap. Severus wondered if he was regretful for Pettigrew betraying their little group, or if the sorrow was for believing Black had done it all these years. Knowing Lupin's penchant for guilt and self-loathing, it was likely both. With the Dementors gone, Severus truly had no more business here. He didn't give a damn about clearing Black's name past how it neatly tied into his own personal goals. Yet he still sat, his innate need to know what happened overriding his common sense in bidding the others a good day and leaving while he could. "What happens if Sirius doesn't come?" Lupin asked in a choked whisper. "Can we clear his name without him, since Peter confessed?" "It will be much easier with his cooperation. This will be done by the book to the exact letter," Amelia said harshly. "There will be absolutely no mishaps this time." "Not with such a competent department head handling the case," Albus said with a genial smile towards Amelia. Amelia pursued her lips and said nothing as she drank her tea. Despite Albus' best efforts to make conversation, the 6 of them sat in near constant silence, each watching as the clock ticked on. 10 minutes since Severus sent the message. 30 minutes. Will Black show his face? 45. Coward. 60. At precisely 79 minutes since Severus sent his message, there was a scratching at the office door. "I believe that is our guest of honor," Albus said happily as he stood and opened the door. Severus felt an intense wave of anger and irritation as Potter's goddamned dog slowly entered the room. Potter trusted that dog, played with it, groomed it, fed it, talked to it, cherished it. And it had been Black posing the entire time. "It will be easier to clear your name if you were in your human form," Albus said softly. The dog let out a low whine as it looked up at Albus, before slowly sitting on its hind legs and shifting into the form of Sirius Black. Lupin let out a miserable sort of noise. "Pads," he croaked. Pads ignored him in favor of searching the room carefully as he backed himself to the doorway, raising an arm defensively in front of himself. Black's hair was shoulder-length and glossier than an escaped convict had any reason to be, no doubt thanks to Potter's attentions. He still wore the faded and tattered grey Azkaban jumpsuit. His face had a slightly sunken appearance, though Severus was sure it would be much worse had Potter not been feeding him every day. "Did you catch the rat?" Black's voice was hoarse from disuse. He looked around the room anxiously, grey eyes appearing haunted as he looked from face to face. "We did," Albus said. "Well, Severus did." Black looked at Severus quickly. "Harry, he's okay." "Potter is fine," Severus sneered at Black. How dare he ask about Potter while he has spent months fooling the child? "Will you consent to an interview under the use of Veritaserum?" Amelia cut in briskly. "We have interviewed Pettigrew and will require your cooperation as well." I can tell you what really happened," Black said, his voice filled with hope. "No more Azkaban." "We will discuss it post-interview," Amelia said. "Do you consent or not?" Black looked towards Lupin, who was staring at him, as if seeing the stars for the first time. "Pathetic." "Yeah, I consent," Black said. "How soon can we do it?" "Immediately," Fudge said. "Why don't we pop over to the ministry and get this taken care of right now?" "Oh, wonderful plan," Albus said merrily. "Sirius, why don't I accompany you?" Severus looked towards Lucius, who was grimacing at the floor. "Apologies," Lucius mouthed to Severus before turning to Black. "I believe you will require legal representation," he said smoothly. "As the barrister on retainer for the House of Black, I will accompany you and represent your legal interests." "Who made you retainer for the House of Black?" Black asked with a disgusted sneer towards Lucius. "I think I'd rather take my chances without one than you." "Very well, I will inform Herr Potter Black that you refused my services," Lucius said easily. "Enjoy interrogation without a lawyer, Black." Black looked to Lupin again, and Severus saw as Lupin nodded his head the slightest amount. "Fine," Black huffed, "you can come with Malfoy." "Don't do me any favors," Lucius purred with an impassive gaze. "Let's get this over with," Fudge said. "Sooner we get to the ministry, the sooner this whole mess can be solved." "Severus, will you be joining us?" Albus asked as he stepped up to the flue. "I will not," he said. "I have a million things that I would rather be doing." Which was a lie. He wanted to know how this played out, but his attention was required here, and Lucius would fill him in regardless. "Very well," Albus said. "We will see you when we return." Severus nodded to Albus and watched as he disappeared through the flames. "Excellent work, Severus." Fudge offered him his hand before he too disappeared. Severus looked towards Amelia and Lucius, and gave them each a curt nod before turning his back to Black and Lupin and hurrying from the room. He accomplished what he hoped, for the Dementors were gone, and it was incredibly unlikely that they would return. He would have rather paid any other price aside from helping Sirius Black. But so be it. Severus went to the Slytherin dorm and knocked briskly before opening the door. Potter was laying on his bed, wrapped in an enormous blanket that was nearly colourful and bright enough to bring tears to Severus' eyes. "Is he asleep?" Severus asked Miss Bones, who was playing a card game on the floor with Miss Lovegood and Miss Granger. "Yep," Bones said airily as she laid down 3 cards and laughed at Granger. "He fell asleep about 20 minutes ago. Want me to wake him up?" Severus considered it for a moment before ultimately shaking his head. "No, send him to my office when he wakes." "Yes, sir," Granger murmured as she laid a couple of cards on the floor. "Would you like to play cards, Professor?" Lovegood asked as she gave him a cheerful smile. "Susan is going to win this round, but I think you have a good shot of winning the next one if you join." "No, thank you." Severus rolled his eyes as he imagined the fallout of being caught alone in the boys' dormitory in Slytherin House with 3 teenage girls, none of whom belonged anywhere near the area. "I will be in my office. Just send Potter the moment he wakes up." "Okay," Lovegood shrugged and turned back to the game. Severus hurried back to his office, deciding to get ahead on his brews for Poppy while he had the time. Severus was mid-brew on a batch of pepper-ups for the hospital wing, as the colder months bring more colds than any other in the drafty castle, when his office door was flung open. He looked up, expecting to hear Potter's greeting of "I'm here," and instead was faced with Lupin. And Black. Delightful. Lupin was beaming, as if he had won the Muggle lottery. Black had a warier look on his face, but his body was relaxed in a way it had not been this morning. Cleared, Lupin said, cleared of all charges. Delightful, Severus drawled sardonically. Leave. I want to see Harry, Black said quickly. Where is he? Severus straightened himself up from his cauldron and curled his lip at Black's audacity. He is asleep, though I doubt if he were awake that he would wish to see you. Lupin's smile dimmed. Why wouldn't he want to see Sirius? He can explain to him what really happened that night. I don't even know why you're here, Severus said with a sharp look at Lupin. Potter certainly won't wish to see you. Lupin took on a hangdog expression as he glanced between Black and Severus. Yes, well. I want to talk with Harry, Black said again. I need to explain. Have you not allowed Potter to talk to you plenty? Severus snarled. Do you intend to inform him why his pet is no longer sniffing around the forest? It isn't your damn business, Snape. Black spat his name out like poison. Go get my damn godson. I need to talk to him. Severus stepped closer to Black and spoke in a softly mocking tone. Your godson, surely you mean my ward. Severus was delighted to see the fury that filled Black's eyes at the reminder. Did you forget, that while you were playing fetch as a pet, that I am actually Potter's guardian? Fuck you, Black snarled, stepping up to glare in Severus' face. Harry thinks you're a good person, loyal and honest, but we know the truth, don't we, Snivelus? You dare, when I saved your skin from the Dementors. Severus put his wand in Black's chest, and was close enough now to see the anger lighting the man's grey eyes. Why don't we calm down now? Lupin suggested softly from the side. Neither Black nor Severus stepped back, both staring hatefully at the other. I should have burnt your little note and turned you in myself, he hissed at Black. And leave the Dementors to kill Harry. You do that, Black sneered. You don't care about him at all, do you? Do not talk to me. Severus was cut off by the noise of his office door opening. Potter stood in the open doorway, his mouth hanging open as he took in the scene in front of him. Severus with another man at wand point, Lupin standing uselessly to the side. Potter looked directly to Severus and raised both of his brows incredulously. What's going on? Perfect. Chapter 15, It's a Dog's Life. He had been skulking around Nocturne Alley ever since he arrived back on the mainland, and was no closer to finding a single red-headed member of the Weasley family than he started with. He knew he'd have better luck in Diagon, but he couldn't take the risk until he knew if Moony told someone what he is. He'd been watching the news, nicking papers when he could, and knew that so far it hasn't been reported that he was an animagus. But surely Moony would tell someone soon, though, and then his cover would be blown. And he had to find the rat first. He figured that at some point he'd find or hear someone talking about the Weasleys, and he could get an idea for where they lived in the summers. Arthur had a huge family. Someone somewhere must know where they're located. Okay, except I could never date one of the Weasley boys. Imagine how badly our hair would clash. Sirius perked up at that and excitedly wagged his tail. There was a girl, walking into Nocturne with long dark red hair talking about Weasleys. Finally! Sirius went running up to the girl and her friend, a scrawny boy with dark hair, and started yipping to catch her attention. Always hey there, good doggy, Harry, look. The scrawny dark-haired boy turned and it was Harry, James and Lily's Harry, little baby Harry all grown up now, his Harry. Harry still had Lily's eye shape, but his green eyes were darker than Lily's had been. He wore his hair long, in waves that reached his neck and could be pulled back in a small bundle if he tried. The colour was all James, but Sirius was proud to see it was the same style he himself wore during his school days. Hey buddy, are you hungry? Sirius whined and jumped away from the hand that Harry reached out to him with. There was something about Harry that put him on edge. He tried to ignore it, but it was still a feeling all the same. Course it doesn't like me, Harry grumbled to his friend who was now scratching Sirius' back. Dogs always hate me. Sirius suppressed the feeling of wrongness he got from Harry and slowly approached him. He nudged Harry's hand with his nose and looked at him with his big dog eyes. I don't hate you. Or see, he likes you. Harry slowly rubbed his hands across Sirius' back, frowning at what he felt. He's starving, Harry cried. When's the last time you ate, buddy? You feel like you're just all bone. Sirius whined. It had been a while since he's ate anything, even longer since he's ate anything that wasn't out of the trash bins. "Come on, we can go get you some food," Harry said softly, "and then you can go shopping with us, yeah." Sirius let out a couple soft woofs and wagged his tail ferociously. Who would be looking for the escaped prison inmate by the side of Harry Potter? "He likes us," the red-headed girl cheered. "Let's go back to the Leaky and get him something to eat." "All right," Harry agreed. "Simon, buddy, let's go feed you." After Sirius scarfed down the food Harry bought him. "It's a steak because you need to put some meat on your bones," Harry chuckled. Sirius spent the next couple of hours running around Diagon keeping up with Harry and his friend Susan. Merlin were all teenagers this exhausting, or was Harry a special case? Harry seemed to have enough energy for 3 teens as he laughed, and jumped, and ran, and skipped between buildings pulling his friend along. Eventually, after hours pleasantly spent chasing the 2 children, and barking happily, and futilely attempting to keep them out of Nocturne Alley, Sirius only tried half-heartedly really. Exploring Nocturne was a rite of passage for all teens. Harry's friend Susan said she needed to get going. "Auntie won't be happy if I'm out after dark," she pointed out. "Yes, s'pose Snape won't be happy either," Harry said glumly before perking up. "Hey, do you think he'd be mad if I brought home a dog?" "Probably," Susan laughed, "but you should do it anyway and take a photo when he sees the dog." Harry laughed too, terribly amused at the idea apparently. Sirius took the opportunity to let out a small whimper of regret before slipping away quickly, unnoticed by either of the children. He would have given anything to stay with Harry, anything at all, but finding Wormtail was more important. He couldn't let that traitor stay inside the castle where Harry lived, so he took off, ducking down into another dark alleyway to watch, wait, and hide. He'd find the rat, eventually. Sirius dug a hole in the ground, desperately trying to bury his nose in something fresh, earthy. Something that reminded him of being 16 and free and running wild across the grounds, and not of 12 long years in Azkaban with the cold cloying scent of the Dementors. Their scent was all across the school grounds, suffocating, crushing, freezing. Sirius inhaled through his nose, letting his dog senses focus on the noises happening on the grounds and blocking out the Dementors' invasive scents. "You're at Hogwarts, you're finding the rat, you're saving Harry." Almost as if his thoughts had conjured him, Sirius could hear his godson's weird, twangy voice carrying across the grounds. "Doesn't assign much homework." Sirius scooted along the tree line to the edge of the forest, seeking out his godson. There, the students must be outside for care of magical creatures class. Harry was standing next to a blonde with a pointed nose and yes, Arthur Weasley's son, the one with the rat. Sirius took a few deep sniffs as he watched the students carefully and growled lightly once he realized the rat was nowhere around. He laid on the ground and covered his nose with one paw, in a desperate attempt to block the scent that threatens his very hold on his sanity. He focused instead on Harry. The couple of times he's seen Harry now have told him one thing for sure: his godson is a weird kid. Harry seemed like a popular kid, always surrounded by friends, but he also always seems separate as well. Alone, as if he prefers it that way. Plus, he's a Slytherin, which had been a nasty shock for Sirius to discover. James and Lily's son, his godson, a Slytherin. He had no idea how the Sorting Hat could have made such a mistake. For now though, Sirius laid and watched as Harry was volunteered to approach the hippogriff Hagrid had out for the class. He wagged his tail with laughter when Harry refused to bow, and had to back away quickly before the hippogriff attacked him. Harry might be in the wrong color robes, but he's just as cocky as James had ever been. He listened as Harry argued playfully with his blonde pointy friend. "Piss off," Harry yelled at the other boy with a short laugh. His godson had a terrible habit for foul language, and Sirius loved it. Sirius jumped to his paws when Harry's blonde friend was scratched by the hippogriff. Even from as far back as he was, Sirius could smell the blood. He whined as he watched Harry shove his way to his friend. "Quit whining, you're embarrassing yourself," Sirius barely heard Harry whisper. It drew another panted chuckle from him. Harry didn't have much of a bedside manner, did he? But holy Merlin, he watched Harry heal his friend with a lazy wave of his hand. Who needed bedside manners when you had strength and power like that? Sirius settled back down as Harry took his frustrations out on Hagrid. It had been a little irresponsible of Hagrid to leave the students on their own with the hippogriffs, but Harry didn't seem to mind a bit of danger, so what was the problem? His friend had been hurt. That was clearly the problem. Harry must be as loyal to his friends as James had always been. He hoped Harry's friends never repaid him as horribly for his loyalty as Wormtail had prongs. Sirius scooted forward and listened as Harry started a fight with some Gryffindor prat who said Harry wasn't scary. Sirius let out a loud bark of laughter when the Gryffindor quickly backed away from Harry. If Harry wasn't scary then, why did the Gryffindor boy nearly pee his pants when he took 2 steps towards him? Even Sirius could see that there was something different about Harry. There was something cold, something that set off Sirius' instincts in his animal form. But Harry was still the same black-haired baby who had chased him down on a broomstick and pulled his hair every time he held him. Harry was still his godson. He let out a small whine of frustration when the class was dismissed, and Harry stomped back towards the castle. As different as Harry might be, Sirius still needed to find the rat, clear his name, and be the godfather he always planned on being. He knew Wormtail was inside somewhere. He finally caught scent of a semi-fresh trail this morning when the Weasley boy had went out for herbology. It was the same Weasley who was in Harry's year, sporting green robes, which must make him a Slytherin as well. Which meant that the damned rat was sleeping in Harry's dorm. Not much longer, though. Sirius reassured himself. Soon Wormtail would regret every traitorous breath he'd ever taken. Sirius was packing back and forth in the tree line of the forest, plotting, planning, scheming, when the rapid footsteps of someone approaching caught his attention. Harry! Sirius sniffed around cautiously as Harry came up to him. "What are you doing?" Harry said, scratching his ears. "You look hungry." Sirius let out a series of happy barks when Harry called for a cheerful little elf to bring him a steak. "You're the best," he thought happily as he wagged his tail and made short order of the steak. After he was done, he looked around for Harry and was happy to see him sitting against a tree. He plodded over to him and gently laid his head in his lap and whined just a little. "Most dogs don't like me," Harry said to him. "Hagrid says his dumb dog's a good judge of character, and it growls every time it sees me." If Harry wasn't his godson, Sirius would probably react the same way. Harry gave off a feeling of cold danger, but this was his godson, so Sirius whined and nudged his hand with his nose. "Pet me, please." Sirius had went 12 years without human contact. Having someone scratch his ears or rub his back was better than Felix Felicis to him. Harry obligingly scratched his ears and laughed as Sirius thumped his tail on the ground. He was so caught up in the joy of it that he nearly missed what Harry said. "I hate Lupin, I hate these Dementors, I hate Sirius Black." Sirius looked mournfully up at Harry. Of course he hated him, it was Sirius' fault his parents died. He suggested the change in Secret Keepers. He thought it was brilliant at the time, and instead it killed his brother, Harry's dad. Though he had no idea why Harry would hate Lupin. Sirius had smelled Lupin on the grounds a few times, and pieced together that he was teaching here now. Did Harry and Lupin not get along? "I'm going to kill him," Harry said, apparently swearing vengeance on Sirius himself. "As soon as I find him. I could have had a totally different life if it weren't for him, you know. He ruined it." I ruined your life, pup, I'm sorry." Sirius licked Harry's hand, the only way he could show his remorse given his current state. Thankfully it made Harry laugh a little. "Gross," he said, a small smile aimed down at Sirius. The two of them sat there, both enjoying the peace as the sun sank down behind the Black Lake. The peace that was shattered when Harry jumped to his feet as someone yelled his name. Sirius jumped back behind the trees, unwilling to trust anyone aside from Harry with his presence on the grounds. Though he almost lost his composure when it was none other than Severus Snape, scolding his godson for being out by the tree line. Harry was nearly to the edge where the Dementors wouldn't bother to distinguish him from a criminal, but it was Snape's damn business. "When's the last time you slept through the night?" Snape asked him. Sirius didn't understand when Harry said he wasn't sure. Did he not sleep well? He said he hates the Dementors. Were they causing him to sleep badly? Sirius watched carefully as Snape gave him a potion, probably dreamless sleep from the sounds of it, and bared his teeth in absolutely confusion as Snape's tone. Was he teasing Harry? Harry certainly didn't look scared of Snape, not that he should, because Snape is a greasy git, and if he put one hand on Harry then Sirius would chew his arm off. But Snape looked almost like he didn't hate Harry. Which is not a look Sirius has ever seen on Snivel's face, aside from back when he was around Lily. Which was disturbing to even think about. "SHHH pup, don't tell him about me," Sirius thought as Harry told Snape about a dog he found. "I'm gonna see if it wants to go home with us this summer." "Us?" "Delightful," Snape said in the same drawling tone. He's always used to sound so superior to everyone else. What I have always wanted was a moody teenaged ward, an elf that utilizes a barter system, a neurotic bird, and a flea-bitten dog in our home. Go home with US. A teenaged ward. In our home. Sirius couldn't hold back a growl as everything started clicking in place. Why the hell was his godson living with fucking Severitus? Sirius had it planned out. He'd watched, waited, plotted, planned. Tonight was the night. He ignored the dread in his stomach that reminded him how 13 years ago today he'd lost the best friend and best brother he could have ever wished for. He had to focus on Wormtail. If he could get the rat, then he'd save his godson and maybe have a shot at being a part of the little family he has left. Harry. Moni. Well, that was it really, but it would be 2 more people than he's had for the last 12 years. He came out from beneath the whomping willow and slunk through the rarely used side entrance of the castle. He crawled down the stairs, headed for the dungeons. What he hadn't counted on was not having a real clear memory of where the Slytherin dorms were located in the dungeons. He focused on scents eventually and tried to let the scent of where the students went to most frequently guide him. He eventually found a portrait, a snake of course, and changed back to his human form for the first time in over 4 months. Aconite, he rasped out. He'd heard one of the Slytherin boys tell it to his girlfriend as they walked back from classes one evening. Luckily the password hadn't changed recently and the portrait opened up for him. He needed to hurry. He lost time while searching for the entrance and the students could come back from the feast any time now. He tore up the stairs and grimaced to see he'd went up the female side apparently. Back down he went, then up the stairs for the boys' side. He checked each door carefully until he found the one labeled 3rd years. He opened the door slowly and gazed around the room. There wasn't any obvious sign of the rat, but surely he was here somewhere. He started digging around in trunks, wardrobes, ripping bedding off the beds in his frustration. Where is the damn rat? Oh fuck. Sirius looked up from the trunk he had been trying to pry open with his knife, straight into the panicked eyes of the Weasley boy himself. It's no rat though. Sirius was about to try and make a break for it when... You! Harry came running in and immediately started throwing curses at him. Jesus Christ, what was this kid learning in school? Sirius had to duck, dodge, and spin faster than he ever had in his training to become a hit wizard. Was he out of shape or was Harry like freakishly fast? Sirius had no wand, no intentions on harming his godson, but no intentions on getting captured tonight either, so he took the only route he could. Push past Harry and run like hell. He shoved Harry out of his way, apologizing in his own head as he did so, then made for the portrait. Stop, Harry yelled, chasing after him. Sirius was just about to step out of the entrance when he felt his knife being summoned right out of his hand. As Sirius scampered back into the forest, a dog once again, he tried to find a silver lining in the evening. He didn't find Wormtail. He scared the hell out of a bunch of kids. Harry stole his damn knife. And he looked like a real coward, running away from a 13-year-old. He howled miserably as he tallied it all up and realized there was no silver lining. He had just fucked it all up once again. Sirius spent the next couple weeks trying to spend as much time as he could with Harry and figure out the Slytherin boys' schedule. He figured it was 2 owls 1 stone. He can find the best time to ambush Wormtail while also getting to know his godson. He discovered that Harry had a rather large group of friends, but he spent the most time with the red-headed girl Susan and a blonde girl that gave Sirius chills when she looked at him. He had a nasty feeling that she saw more than most people, but she never indicated that she thought he was anything more than a lovable stray, so he relaxed. Well, he used to be a lovable stray. Apparently he'd been adopted by Harry. Grim, he called him. His godson had his sense of humor, that's for sure. Sirius listened carefully for the first Hogsmeade weekend, thinking he could try his luck then in searching the boys' dorms. He was close, so damn close, when he was spotted. By Snape of all people. Shumut, Harry isn't here, he scowled. He better not be sneaking you in the castle, or we will be having words. Sirius growled at him. He was not going to have words with Harry about a damn thing. He still didn't know how, or why Harry moved in with Snape, but the second he caught the rat, he'd be fixing that. Of course the brat would become attached to a dog as obstinate as he is. Snape muttered as he strode up the castle walkway, as Sirius retreated quickly back to the Whomping Willow. If he couldn't get in the castle, then he'd just go find Harry in Hogsmeade. He hoped he was up to something fun to brighten Sirius' day. He wagged his tail and jumped happily when he left the shack to go find Harry, and there he was. Woof woof! Sirius went running up to Harry while a blonde witch, a different one than the one Harry usually hangs around with, starting laughing at the name Harry gave him. You named a huge black dog Grim. You're a bit mad, aren't you, Harry? Sirius growled just a bit as Harry scratched his ears. Harry was weird, no denying that, but he wasn't mad. Shut your mouth, Harry's friend Susan snapped at the other witch. Sirius grinned and wagged his tail in agreement. That other witch should shut up. My dog, my name, Harry said in a mocking voice that Sirius had only heard a few times from him. Feel free to fight me over it. Despite the scars that seemed to crisscross all over Harry's visible skin, Sirius got the impression Halloween night that Harry doesn't lose a lot of fights. The blonde witch reached towards Sirius and he snapped at her. Harry didn't seem to like her, so he figured he wouldn't mind, and he didn't. You can bite her if you want, Harry told him. Sirius barked and jumped until Harry laughed. Simon, let's keep looking, Harry said to his friend Susan. What are they looking for? Sirius trotted alongside Harry as he circled the shack a couple of times. Where are we not looking for Sirius Black at next? The blonde witch asked cheerfully. Sirius whined and scooted closer to Harry. Why was his godson searching for him? Why couldn't Harry just drop it? Ignore her, boy, she's an imbecile, Harry said in a mocking tone. Are you sure you're Harry Potter? Because you sound a lot like Severus Snape, the witch laughed before. Oh shit. That wasn't one of Harry's friends. It's Sirius, cousin Andromeda's daughter, the metamorph magus Aura that did a few patrols in Azkaban during her training. Sirius couldn't help but growl and snap at her. He did not need an Aura trailing Harry. If they found out he was an animagus, and why hasn't Moony told anyone yet? Then she'd surely remember the black dog hanging around Harry. Sirius had gotten so caught up in his own doomed plans that he hadn't noticed Harry and the others wandering off towards the village, bickering as they went. He hesitated. It wouldn't be a good idea to go to the village. But it wasn't supposed to be a good idea to escape from prison, and he'd pulled that off just fine. Sirius ran to catch up to the kids, and let out a bark of laughter as he heard Nymphadora tell the students that they aren't very nice. They really were. And Sirius liked that about them. Harry gave him explicit instructions to wait outside for him if he wanted a treat once they arrived at the first shop, so Sirius found a place to sit and wait. But just as Harry stepped in, Sirius jumped up to see inside the window. He wanted to see Harry's face on his first Honeyduke's visit, and he hadn't been disappointed. Harry's face lit up, and Sirius had never seen him look so young and happy before now. He wagged his tail eagerly as Harry was pulled in different directions by Susan and the blonde boy he hung out with, Narcissa's son, maybe. He returned to his spot by the door and laid his head down on his paws as he watched for Harry to come back out. Eventually he did, his arms filled with bags and his shoulders more relaxed with a brighter smile than he'd had before he went in. And Merlin, James, arrogance lived on in his son, didn't it? Sirius smiled to himself as Harry shrunk his friend's packages with just a bored command. Grim, come on buddy, want a treat? Sirius went running up to him and jumped on him, eagerly trying to knock him down. If you knock me down in front of all these people, I'm not giving you a treat, Harry said warningly, his eyes still crinkled with laughter. Sirius immediately jumped down and wagged his tail. This is how he wants Harry to always look, young and happy and carefree. He hasn't seen this nearly enough so far. Harry gave him some treats, and they all went across the road to the Three Broomsticks, where Harry ordered him to once again wait outside. I'm sorry, buddy, I can't bring you in, Harry said with a frown. Sirius licked his hand so he knew he didn't hold it against him. One day he'd have his name cleared, and him and Harry could come get butterbeers together and actually get to know each other. If he ever found the damn rat. Sirius planned on sitting outside the pub, enjoying the occasional wafts of hot air accompanied by pleasant smells every time the door opened, up until the minister showed up. Sorry, Harry, he thought regretfully as he quickly slunk out through the alley and raced back towards Hogwarts. Where the minister was, the Dementors were, and Sirius couldn't take any risks. He decided to wait beneath a little clump of bushes, off the main path maybe. He'd either find the Weasley boy with the rat or Harry on their way back to the castle. He had started to doze lightly when he heard someone stomping angrily through the pathway. He peeked out and saw it was Harry. Why's he so mad? He'd been so relaxed and happy before he went in the pub. Maybe him and his friends had a spat. Sirius followed Harry in past the gates and had to bark to catch his attention. Damn it, I'm sorry buddy, I forgot to get you food. Sirius wagged his tail at Harry and tried to lick his hand to tell him he didn't mind. Harry had been feeding him so much Sirius probably already gained back half a stone. Why are you upset? What's wrong? He wondered as he gazed up at Harry. I'm just mad, I guess, I'm just mad, Harry finally admitted. Talk to me, Sirius whined and tried to pull Harry over to a tree where he could sit and talk like he did before. He wanted to know why Harry was mad. He wanted to know everything about him. Harry laughed and teased him for using him as a pillow, but he seemed to understand what he wanted as he sat down and allowed Sirius to lay his head in his lap. Come on, tell me what's wrong. Harry scratched his ears and complied with the request Sirius couldn't voice. Hagrid's an idiot, Harry murmured, telling the whole pub about Black betraying my parents like that. How would he like it if I told stories about him to everyone, huh? Merlin, I'm sorry pup, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, Sirius whined. You know Black was my godfather, yeah, and he just let Hagrid take off with me, which is only a little better than killing me there, I guess. I would have never killed you, he growled. I should have taken you. I should have told Dumbledore to go fuck himself and you and I could have just turned Wormtail in. Merlin, it would have been so different. Which do you think is worse, grim dying, or living with people who hated you for 7 years? What? Sirius growled at the very thought. Hagrid told him that night that Harry was going to his aunt and uncle, Lily's kin. Did they hate Harry? Why was he only there 7 years? What all did Sirius miss locked up in that hellhole? Did your owners kick you out too? Is that why you're my dog now? I'll always be here for you, pup. I'm sorry, Sirius thought as he laid his head back in Harry's lap. Do you want to help me find Black? I figure if I wait long enough he'll find me and try to kill me. I'm not going to kill you, Merlin. Black couldn't actually kill me, could he, buddy? Doesn't even have his fucking knife. Sirius let out a few barking laughs at that. He wasn't happy about losing the only weapon he had since he had no wand, but Harry bragging about taking his knife off him was just too funny to ignore. He wondered if he could tell Harry about this one day, and they could laugh together. Everyone says he's mad, he's a dark wizard, he's evil, but Sissa says he was tragically misunderstood. Snape says I'm misunderstood too. Do you suppose that's just a nice way of saying crazy? Sissa defended me. He had no idea what to make of the Snape comment, but he was pleased to hear Sissa describe him to his godson as anything other than a raving lunatic. Sirius focused back on the one-sided conversation just as Harry whispered, I can tell you a secret though, can't I, buddy? Sirius thumped his tail on the ground. Of course you can, pup, you can tell me anything. I'd die before I betrayed you, I swear. Susan told me she loves me, she's my best friend, but I don't even know what that means, Harry said in a hushed whisper. Hermione and Theo are in love, I guess, and I don't get it either. Do you think I'm broken or something? How do you know if you love someone? I'd kill someone who tried to hurt my friends, but if they tried to hurt me I'd probably kill them too. So do I love them? That doesn't sound like love, does it? Well, it didn't really. Sirius was sure Harry wasn't broken, but he was a really odd kid. He whined as he had no idea what to make of Harry's confession. Think I can tell Snape I told you a secret, and he'd let it count? Sirius stuck his tongue out in an effort to show how little he cared about the opinion of Severus Snape, who Harry actually talked about quite a bit. I better go, buddy, Harry said as he stood up. Don't want Snape to come yelling again, do we? Sirius bared his teeth in a light growl. If Snape came yelling at his godson in front of him, then he'd be biting a hole in the man's leg. Harry laughed as he walked up to the castle. At least he seemed more relaxed now. Sirius might be only a dog godfather right now, but he'd helped a little bit, which is more than he's been able to do in the last 12 years. Sirius tried twice during the next week to sneak into the castle again, and was foiled each time. He decided to put a pause on his plans of getting inside the castle, and try instead to catch Wormtail if he was with Weasley outside the castle instead. Harry came to see him multiple times during the week, sometimes bringing a friend or two, and always bringing food each time. I won't let you be hungry, buddy, he promised each time. Sirius wagged his tail and happily ate while he listened to Harry talk with his friends. One afternoon Harry was talking with Sissa's son, for the blonde was Sissa's son Draco, about their upcoming Quidditch match the next day. Sirius perked up at that. He knew Harry played Seeker for Slytherin and he was so torn. On the one hand, poor, this was his chance to search the dorm again knowing everyone will be out on the field. But on the other, poor, he really wants to see Harry fly. He might have convinced himself to use the chance to search for the rat uninterrupted, if it weren't for Harry scratching his ears before he left and murmuring, "You'll be there, right, buddy?" He couldn't let him down. If Harry wanted his dog, then Sirius would be there, tail wagging, even if it strung quite a bit to be rooting for Slytherin. Kid couldn't have been a Hufflepuff if not Gryffindor. Well, probably not. Even Sirius had to admit that Harry didn't seem to have a gentle bone in his body. Slytherin was probably better than Hufflepuff, though. Sirius and James had been rather sneaky when they were students, pulling loads of pranks. Maybe Harry just inherited the same sneakiness, and it landed him smack dab in the snake pit. Harry was the only family Sirius had left. If he was happy in green robes, then he'd do his best to get over it. Starting with cheering, barking, along for Slytherin tomorrow. Dogs couldn't actually cry, but if they could, Sirius suspects his fur would be soaked by more than just the rain. Harry was a brilliant flyer. He was already better in a thunderstorm in his 3rd year than Sirius or James had been in perfect weather as 7th years. Harry was quick and cunning and light, and made moves on the broomstick that looked like they should be impossible. "Can you see him, James? Can you? He's amazing." Sirius thought his heart might break as he imagined the life Harry should have had. Him and James would have came to all his games, even if they did have to wear green robes. And they'd sit by Minerva and tease her how she lost out on the greatest Seeker in a century, and they'd embarrass the hell out of Harry in front of his friends, and it would have been brilliant. But James was dead, and Harry was an orphan, and Sirius was just a dog on a mission to find a rat. Nothing was the way it should be. Sirius, thoughts swirling rapidly into a morbid place, was the only warning he had before he felt the icy despair clinging over his fur. Dementors. He looked across the field and shit, there were at least 100. Someone get the Dementors off the pitch, they're going to kill some. Sirius started howling as he saw his godson faint and begin plunging towards the ground, his thin frame spiraling towards a sure death, either by the Dementors or the impact itself. Help him, he howled. He focused on Harry and tried to shut the Dementor's aura out of his mind. You're at Hogwarts, you're fine, it's Harry that needs help. Finally Sirius could see someone sprinting on the pitch, their wand drawn, and panicking nearly as much as Sirius himself was. Someone with black hair and... Snape! Snape shot a spell at Harry's body and slowed his descent. Harry still crashed on the ground and Sirius watched, shocked, as Dumbledore conjured a stretcher, and Snape sprinted as quickly as he could with Harry on the stretcher towards the castle. Did Snape like Harry? Snape had hated James Potter, but he used to be quite close with Lily, something that never failed to rile James up with jealousy. Maybe Snape liked Harry because of Lily. Sirius leapt down from the stands and went in search of Harry's friends, hoping to overhear anything about his condition. He's going to be furious, Harry's Ravenclaw friend with the brown hair said. Better to lose a broomstick than his life, her Slytherin boyfriend responded. Sirius watched as the witch pocketed a baggie full of broken broom pieces, and Sirius felt his stomach clench as he realized what it was. Harry's broomstick, his Nimbus 2001. Harry had loved that broom. Sirius saw him polishing it outside the locker room sometimes after practice. He always took his time to do it manually and make sure it was perfect. And now it was destroyed. But well, this was finally Sirius, chance to do something nice for Harry. Even if he couldn't know it was from him. The kid was the boy who lived. He probably got anonymous gifts all the time. Surely nobody would question one generous anonymous gift to him. Sirius hurried off to Hogsmeade to sneak an owl order form before returning to the Hogwarts forest and waiting for any sign of Harry's fate from the fall. How do I fix this? How do I fix you? Sirius whined for the 50th time in the last couple of weeks. Ever since Harry's Quidditch match, Sirius had to silently watch as he got more and more withdrawn, thin, and the bags beneath his eyes grew. He looked terrible, and he sounded miserable. Harry came outside almost once an evening now, just to talk. He told Sirius all about living with the Dursleys, and they had quite a reckoning coming. If Sirius couldn't clear his name, he may as well kill some abusive muggles. He talked about living on the streets. Lily was surely crying to hear this. Her beloved son sleeping in alleys. For the first time in the last 13 years, Sirius was glad James and Lily's weren't here to hear this. He could barely stand it himself. He talked about his nightmares, and living in cupboards, and feeling like he was never going to be good enough, and how Snape was the first person who had ever been kind to him. Which was just, wow, how messed up does life have to be that Severus Snape was the first adult to be kind to this kid? He told Sirius about his boggart, and he was afraid it would all come true one day. He told him about how Moony was a stupid fucking prat, and told Snape about his boggart the moment Harry left the staff room. Sirius growled in frustration at that. Remus could be so good for Harry, but he made a poor choice there, and Harry didn't seem like the forgive and forget type. Harry talked about being worried that Snape wouldn't like him anymore one day, and he'd get rid of him. Sirius had growled at the very idea, and that his friends would all abandon him and he'd be alone. Sirius understood that being alone was a fate worse than death to Harry. He knew how that felt. Harry talked about how his magic was the only thing that made him feel special, the only thing that made matter, he thought. You would matter even if you were a squib, Sirius desperately tried to convey with as many face licks as possible. Harry told him about how he'd recently started punching the walls, how seeing his skin broken, bleeding and damaged made him feel better. Sirius knew how he felt but didn't want his godson doing the same destructive things he did on occasion. He wanted Harry to be better, do better, live better. One horrible night Harry even talked about how he'd been so miserable, so sad, so angry, last year when he was expelled, and didn't Dumbledore have some explaining to do for that one? That he had cut his wrists right open hopping to die rather than live on the streets alone. Sirius had howled as if it were his own wrists being cut open. Why was life so hard on his pup? Then Harry spoke about Snape, how Snape saved him from the streets, how he signed on as his guardian, how he lied for him, taught Harry how to survive in the castle, gave him a house so he'd never be homeless again, and how Severus Snape had somehow managed to become Harry's closest, most trusted, and most reliable person in his life. Which was absolute utter madness. But Harry was an odd kid with a crummy life, and had desperately needed someone, and Snape had stepped up while there hadn't been anyone else to do so, and now Harry was attached. It was insane, but it made sense. Sirius hoped that once he cleared his name, that he could take that spot in Harry's life. Except Harry was going to lose his mind when he realizes that Sirius was grim the whole time. But what was Sirius supposed to do? Run away every time Harry tried to talk to him? It was a miserable time for them both. Harry was being affected by the Dementors worse than Sirius himself was. He could see it in his face every time he came outside. He had the same haunted look of despair that many of the long-term inmates eventually adopted. Sirius was getting desperate and starting to think about trying to reach out to Albus or Remus someone to catch the rat. He doubted he could be tracked by an owl post. It could be a safe call. But if they tipped off Wormtail without actually catching the rat, then Wormtail would escape, and who knew where Sirius would find him at again. He just needed to wait. He needed Harry to hang on just a little bit longer. He was nearly at the end of his rope on patience for Harry's sake when Harry finally tipped the scales on Christmas afternoon. Harry came flying out towards the tree line, under James' cloak but leaving footprints in the snow as he ran. He pulled it off in front of a tree and started wham, crunch, slam, crunch. Stop, Harry, stop. Sirius started barking and howling, and desperately trying to pull Harry away from the tree. Quit it, pup, you're hurting yourself. Quit it, Harry screamed. He turned around and pushed Sirius back as hard as he could with his one remaining good hand. Pup, Sirius jumped back from the fire in Harry's eyes, and the cold anger he was letting off around him. This was the Harry that made Sirius' canine instincts shy away. This hard, cold, icy side that Sirius hadn't seen before, but knew it was there. Sirius had a hard time controlling his animal instincts as Harry hit the ground on his knees, arms wide open, and begged him to forgive him. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, see me, please. Sirius crept towards Harry slowly, relieved to feel that the cold feeling he was putting off earlier was gone now. I'm so sorry, Harry cried as he stroked Sirius back. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Sirius started licking Harry's face, trying to tell him it's okay. It's fine, pup, it's okay. You didn't do anything, I'm sorry too. And then Harry just broke. He clung to Sirius' neck and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And Sirius felt his heart break. If he wasn't 99% sure Harry would stab him immediately, he would transform back to his human self on the spot, just to comfort his godson. I don't want to do it anymore, Grim, Harry wailed. I don't want to be here anymore. No, pup, no, come on, think of flying, think of your friends. Fuck, think of Snape if you have to, don't think that way. Harry kept talking out loud, discussing what all he would need to do before he died, as Sirius panicked. This was Harry, it was the Dementors. Harry might be sad, but they were pushing him off the deep end of madness. Sirius howled and barked and wished so badly that someone would come find his pup right now. Someone needed to protect him. "I'll miss you, Grim," Harry said with a tight hug to Sirius' neck. As soon as Harry put James' old cloak on, Sirius took off towards Hogsmeade as quickly as his 4 paws would take him. Not following Harry inside the castle was the hardest thing he'd ever done, but it would do his godson no good if Sirius was kissed before he had an opportunity to find someone to help Harry. And really, as much as he might not like it, after listening to Harry over the past few months, after seeing what he saw at the Quidditch match, there was only one person Harry had in his life that he trusted completely. There was only one person Sirius could turn to for help right now. Sirius had ran as quick as he could to the Shrieking Shack, and had pulled out a scrap of parchment from the pile he'd been stockpiling just in case, before transforming back temporarily. He scrawled a quick note, being sure to get as many key points in as he could before transforming back, and sending it off with the first available owl he found. Now he had to wait, which was the hardest thing he'd ever done before in his life. "Hold on, pup, just hold on, hold on." Sirius sat in the Forbidden Forest all night and all morning, just watching the castle. He didn't know what he was watching for, but at a minimum he hoped he'd see Harry today, see that he was alive and okay. The sun was nearly all the way in the sky when the first change happened. The Dementors left. They all left. They gathered by the gates, then left the grounds. Sirius felt the first bit of warmth in his fur since he'd first reached the mainland, before the Dementors had been spread everywhere he went. Snape actually did it, he got rid of the Dementors. Did he catch the rat? Sirius paced the forest floor impatiently as he waited for some sort of sign of anything happening up in the castle. He was so focused on the faraway castle that the presence of a silver fox right in front of him made him stumble backwards over his paws. "I received your note. Your presence is required in the defense office. The Dementors have cleared the school." Snape's drawling voice came from the fox. That was the most unhelpful and vaguest message Sirius could imagine receiving in this moment. He assumed Snape got his message. Owls rarely, if ever, lost posts. And he saw the Dementors leave the grounds. But why was he needed in the defense office? Did Snape get the rat? Was Sirius going to be arrested? Was this a trap? He whined as he paced some more and tried to come to a decision. Snape was a greasy git. Sirius heard students complain about him and knew that he hadn't really changed much since school, even if he was fond of Lily's son. But why would the Dementors leave unless they caught the rat? Did Snape give him Veritaserum? Did Wormtail confess? The defense office would be Moony's, which made it seem like Snape did go to him for proof. Did Moony understand? Would Moony help him or hurt him if he showed up? And Snape didn't say a damn thing about Harry. It was that thought that finally made him charge inside the castle. He wouldn't find out how Harry was from the forest. He ran inside and sniffed his way to Moony's office. He took a few deep breaths before scratching on the door. Don't let Harry's trust be in the wrong person, he desperately hoped as Dumbledore himself opened the door. Sirius slunk in the room slowly, eyeing the occupants. Dumbledore, Amelia Bones, Minister Fudge, Snape, Lucius Malfoy, and Moony. Sirius let out a soft whine at Moony's face. He looked shocked, but his eyes were lit up with a desperate kind of hope. Sirius thought that was probably a good sign. "It will be easier to clear your name if you were in your human form," Dumbledore told him. "I don't trust you," Sirius whined, even as he transformed back to himself. He backed away from the Six Wixen, all staring at him with big shocked eyes. "Did you catch the rat?" he asked hoarsely, cursing his voice for sounding so weak in a moment like this. "We did," Dumbledore said. "Well, Severus did." Sirius looked at Snape. "Harry, he's okay." "Potter is fine," Snape sneered. What the hell? Did Snape even care about Harry? Did he even check on him like Sirius told him to? Harry was not fine last night. He'd been planning out a suicide note with instructions for Merlin's sake. How could Snape say he was fine? Sirius was gearing up to argue with the man when Amelia cut in. "Will you consent to an interview under the use of Veritaserum? We have interviewed Pettigrew and will require your cooperation as well." I can tell you what really happened," Sirius said hopefully. "No more Azkaban." We will discuss it post-interview, Amelia said. Do you consent or not? Sirius looked towards Moony, his friend, his lover, the man he had trusted more than anyone. Except for the one thing that had counted. Moony was staring at him with his eyes reflecting Sirius' own hope back at him. He nodded slightly. Do it, his amber eyes said. Yeah, I consent, Sirius said. How soon can we do it? Immediately, Fudge said, his voice suspiciously upbeat for the serious tune. Why don't we pop over to the ministry and get this taken care of right now? Wonderful plan, Dumbledore said. Sirius, why don't I accompany you? Sirius was beginning to panic, thinking this might be a trap when Malfoy caught his attention. I believe you will require legal representation, he said smoothly. As the barrister on retainer for the House of Black, I will accompany you and represent your legal interests. Who made you retainer for the House of Black? Sirius said with a sneer. I think I'd rather take my chances without one than you. The Malfoys were no better of a family than the Black had been, and Lucius had been one of the first Death Eaters as far as Sirius was aware. That's what his mad cousin Bellatrix screamed about all the time anyway. Malfoy just raised his brows and smirked the slightest amount. Very well, I will inform Heir Potter Black that you refused my services. Enjoy interrogation without a lawyer, Black. Damn it, Sirius did want a lawyer, desperately badly. Someone who could make sure his words weren't twisted under Veritaserum, and he'd have no time to find one if Fudge wanted him interviewed now. He glanced at Moony again, the one who always kept a calm head on his shoulders, and saw him nod. Fine, he huffed, you can come with Malfoy. Don't do me any favors, Malfoy said. Sirius rolled his eyes. Either Harry had hired him as a barrister for the House of Black, or he hadn't. It was Sirius doing him any favors regardless. Let's get this over with, the minister said. Sooner we get to the ministry, the sooner this whole mess can be solved. Finally a chance to sort it all out. Sirius could feel tears of relief welling up as Moony stepped up behind him in line for the flu, and slowly put his hand on Sirius' shoulder. I'm sorry, he murmured. I should never have doubted you. I should have trusted you more, Sirius said, his heart aching with how much could have been prevented had they just trusted each other a little more back then. Let's go get this cleared up, Moony said with a watery smile that Sirius returned right before stepping into the flu. The next 2 hours were a whirlwind for Sirius. He'd been taken to interrogation, where Moony waited outside and Malfoy followed him in. Amelia gave him 4 drops of Veritaserum, and the next hour was a haze of questions and toneless answers. When he felt himself coming to from the questioning it was, to the beaming smile of Amelia. Sirius Black, on behalf of the Ministry of Magic, I would like to be the first to apologize to you, and wish you luck on your life going forward. Sirius couldn't catch his breath. Doodasm, that's it, he gasped, looking from Malfoy's bored expression to Amelia's happy one. I'm free. You're free, Amelia confirmed. You'll need to report to records to file for an expungement and report to holding to retrieve your wand, but then you're free to go. Sirius walked out of interrogation in a complete daze. 12 years. 12 years he'd hoped for this day. He'd thought of ripping Wormtail apart himself and then living his life. He never truly thought he'd get to see it happen. Even if Wormtail was already being processed, it was still a dream come true. He'd do it right this time. Forgo vengeance in an effort to live his life the way he should have 12 years ago. He'd barely processed anything when Moony's repeated question finally clicked in. Where do you want to go? He asked, his face lit up with happiness. Hogwarts, Sirius said immediately. I want to see Harry, I have to explain. Moony nodded with understanding, and they flew together back to his office. As they made their way to the dungeons, Moony talked about the little bits of Harry he'd gotten to know. I think the Dementors have been rough on him, he said quietly. He's been roaming around at night, not sleeping, and one night I caught him punching the wall until he broke his knuckles. Sirius frowned as he nodded. Snape clearly wasn't doing very good in his capacity of guardian if he was just letting Harry get worse and worse. What was his plan if Sirius hadn't found a way to get rid of the Dementors? Did he even care about Harry's obvious unhappiness? Moony threw Snape's office door open, agreeing that Snape would be the easiest person to approach to find Harry, and told him that Sirius had been cleared. Delightful, Snape said with a glare at Sirius. Leave. I want to see Harry, Sirius said quickly. Where is he? Why was Harry with Snape? Did he really leave him alone when Sirius said he was going to hurt himself? If something happened to Harry because Snape was too stupid to watch him, then Sirius would have no problem earning a place in Azkaban this time. He's asleep, Snape spat towards Sirius, though I doubt if he were awake that he would wish to see you. Why wouldn't he want to see Sirius? He can explain to him what really happened that night, Moony said with a puzzled frown. I don't even know why you're here, Snape switched his glare to Moony. Potter certainly won't wish to see you. That was probably true enough. Harry had complained quite a bit about Moony. Sirius hoped they could work it out eventually, but it wasn't important right now. I want to talk with Harry, he said again. I need to explain. Have you not allowed Potter to talk to you plenty? Snape snarled. Do you intend to inform him why his pet is no longer sniffing around the forest? It isn't your damn business, Snape. Sirius felt his patience snapping. Go get my damn godson, I need to talk to him. Your godson? Surely you mean my ward, Snape said softly, fury filling Sirius at the reminder that Snape was Harry's guardian instead of himself. It should have been me. Did you forget, that while you were playing fetch as a pet, that I am actually Potter's guardian? Fuck you, Sirius snarled, his patience officially gone. He needed to see that Harry was okay and Snape was playing fucking word games. Harry thinks you're a good person, loyal and honest, but we know the truth, don't we, Snivelus? He was happy to see Snape was now just as angry as Sirius himself was. He stepped closer and jabbed his wand in Sirius' chest. You dare when I saved your skin from the Dementors, he hissed. I should have burnt your little note and turned you in myself. And leave the Dementors to kill Harry. You do that, Sirius said. You don't care about him at all, do you? Do not talk to me. The office door opened and there he was, Sirius' godson, alive. Harry stood in the open doorway, his mouth hanging open as he took in the scene in front of him. Snape with Sirius at one point, while Lupin stood to the side. Harry barely looked at him before looking directly to Severus and raising both of his brows incredulously. What's going on? Shit. Chapter 16, Grim Revelations. Harry grabbed his knife in his pocket with his good hand and held it ready as the three men in Snape's office turned to look at him. He ignored Lupin and the black-haired man and focused on Snape. Snape, who had the black-haired man at one point and looked ready to kill him any moment. What's going on? Harry asked Snape. He tried thinking as hard as he could. If you get to kill this guy, then I get to kill Lupin. He couldn't tell if Snape was picking up on his thought or not, but judging from the smirk on his face, he thought he might have. Harry, the black-haired man, turned away from Snape and smiled at Harry. It took Harry a moment to figure out why the man looked so familiar, and once he did, he felt blazing hot anger rising up through his whole body. It's you! Sirius Black, just standing right in front of him, like a Boxing Day nightmare for Harry. Or like a gift, practically wrapped and presented right in his face. Harry waved his hand and threw Black as hard as possible into Snape's bookshelf. Don't let him move, he ordered his magic with a sharp tug on it. Harry, wait, please listen, it's not what you think, Black was babbling as he pointlessly tried to move off the floor where Harry threw him. Harry ignored him and stepped closer, pulling Black's own knife out of his robe pocket. It would be more karmic, as Snape often said, if he used Black's own knife to kill him, since the man had planned on killing Harry with it after all. Severus, are you going to stop him? Lupin cried. Black wished to speak with Potter, this is his chance. What? Harry paused and looked at Black, then Snape. Why's he in your office? Why do you want to talk to me? Snape held his hands up and gestured towards Black. Feel free to kill him if you'd like, I certainly won't stop you. Snape sneered a look of pure loathing towards Black, but you may want to hear him out first. At least you will end his life for the correct reasons. What reasons? Harry demanded. What more reasons are there? He turned back to Black. What other reasons could you have? It's your fault my parents are dead. Your fault I lived in Surrey. All of the Dementors your fault. I know, God, Harry, I know, Black said, his voice hoarse but genuine. I'm so sorry, but it's not what you think. Shut up, Harry ordered with another pull of his magic. He turned to Snape, who was leaning against the wall next to Lupin. Lupin looked like he was going to have a panic attack or something any moment. His eyes were bulging, and he was wringing his hands together. Snape looked bored. What's he talking about? Harry asked Snape. What's going on? Maybe you should let Sirius. I wasn't fucking talking to you, Harry snarled at Lupin. Language, Snape murmured with a pleased smirk in the corner of his mouth. Snape, what's going on? Harry asked again. Your godfather, Snape grimaced as he said that, has been cleared of all charges this morning. What? Harry yelped. But how? Why? Harry glanced behind himself to Black, who was still frozen in place and mouthing something silently over and over. He looked back to Snape. Why would they do that? He thought the damn minister was his friend. Harry, why don't you? Can you get rid of him? Harry yelled to Snape, gesturing at Lupin, because I'm going to hurt him if not. He could feel that desperate feeling rising in him and his magic was swirling around, ready to do what he wanted with the slightest notice. If Lupin didn't leave, as in right now, Harry was going to hurt him. He wasn't against it, he still owed Lupin for the boggart, but he did need to get some answers. It wouldn't do him any good if Lupin killed him before he killed Black. He had magic on his side, but Lupin had crazy wolf strength. Harry wasn't a fan of even odds. Gladly, Snape said. He flicked his wand and Harry watched with satisfaction as Lupin was shoved outside the classroom, with the door slammed firmly in his face. Why did they let Black go? Harry immediately asked Snape. Snape wouldn't lie to him. Snape didn't even like Black, hated him as much as Harry did in fact. Surely he'd be upset about it too. Your parents switched secret keepers, Snape said calmly, politely ignoring the crazy wind that Harry's magic was causing to fill the room. They used Pettigrew instead of Black. Pettigrew was the one who betrayed them and turned them into the Dark Lord. Then he was the one who killed the Muggles and faked his death when Black confronted him. Harry stared at Snape as the magic around him settled at his feet. And you believe that? He said incredulously. It sounded less believable than the lies Harry used to tell at primary to cover his bruises. I fell caused a black eye. They switched secret keepers, cleared Black's name. Ridiculous. I would not, had I not heard it with my own ears, while Pettigrew was under the influence of Veritaserum. You Pettigrew was here, where is he now? Harry asked quickly. If it was true then Pettigrew was the reason Harry didn't get to live with his parents, and Black was the one who left him to the Dursleys. 20 minutes ago the only person he'd been planning on killing today was himself, but it seemed like he could turn this whole day around really. Take one name off his list, and take someone off the list he didn't know needed to even be there. A miracle really. I believe he is on his way to Azkaban, Snape said. Harry stared hard at him, his brows furrowed. You let them take him, why would you do that? Letting them arrest Pettigrew was the only way to get Black's name cleared, so I could get rid of the Dementors. Snape gave him a sympathetic sort of look. If it were not for the Dementors, I gladly would have assisted you in dispatching of the rat. The Dementors are gone, you got rid of them. Really, Harry breathed, excitement filling him for the first time in months. He hated the Dementors, hated them more than he hated Black, more than he hated Dumbledore even. Getting rid of the Dementors was worth delaying Pettigrew's death. The Dementors made him weak and worthless and pathetic. And Snape got rid of them. Snape gave him a small smile and a nod. They are gone. Harry felt relief crashing over him so hard that if it weren't for Black still being in the room he probably would have cheered. Brill, he grinned at Snape, you're a genius. I am aware, Snape said it in a bored voice, but Harry could tell he was pleased with himself. He grimaced as he looked again towards Black. I believe at some point you will have to do something with that. He does not add much to my decor. Harry glanced behind him to Black and saw that he was still in the same spot on the floor, though he clearly gave up on trying to talk and was now just glaring at Snape. Don't fucking look at him like that, Harry snapped. He turned back to Snape and saw that he was practically smirking now towards Black. How'd you find him anyway? He asked. Snape gestured towards Harry's usual chair in front of his desk. If you would like, we could have coffee while I tell you the incredibly anticlimactic story, Snape offered casually, as if there wasn't a man awaiting an execution stuck to the floorboards of his classroom. Harry hesitated as he turned and looked at Black again. Find out what happened first, then kill Black, he decided. Okay. Harry turned his chair just enough where he could see both Snape and Black. He gave a careful pull on his magic and felt like it was in place enough to hold Black for a while longer. Snape called for Mavis and ordered them both a cup of coffee with milk and sugar. Harry's right hand shook a little as he grabbed his mug, but if Snape noticed, he didn't comment. I received an annoying letter this morning, Snape said after they both drank their coffee for a moment. It said, find Weasley's rat. Harry listened carefully as Snape explained how he got a letter from Black, how he went and got Scabbers from their dorm, demanded answers from Lupin, how he called for Madame Bones and Mr. Malfoy and they talked to Pettigrew. Then Snape saw a chance to get rid of the Dementors and took it. And I believe aside from a few finer points, which I will gladly let Black explain himself on, that brings us up to when you entered and interrupted Black demanding he see you. That Harry didn't even know what to say. That sounds like bullshit. Scabbers the annoying little rat was an animagus, smart enough to fake his death and pin the Muggle murders on Black, but too stupid to use magic to change his appearance and hide out in another country. If anyone aside from Snape had told him this story, he never would have believed them. Ever. I agree, Snape said, yet it is apparently the truth. Harry glanced over to Black, who was nodding emphatically. So if he didn't betray my parents, then how come he let Hagrid take me that night? If he was innocent and my godfather, why didn't he take me with him? An excellent question, Snape said, one I suggest you ask him. Harry tried to look at Black as hatefully as Snape had. If you even twitch in my direction, I'm going to kill you, he said flatly, as he pointed Black's own knife in his direction. Got it. He was going to kill him anyway, but he wanted answers first. Like Snape said, better to kill him for the right reasons. Black mouthed something indecipherable that seemed like an agreement as Harry pulled his magic back in. You're strong, Black chuckled weakly once he was freed. I know, Harry cut him off. He didn't need Black to praise his magic, he needed him to answer some questions. Why'd you let Hagrid take me? Black got to his feet slowly, and kept a wary look on the knife Harry had clutched in his left hand. Apparently he wasn't as stupid as Harry thought he was. Which didn't say much, because Harry thought he was an absolute idiot. I went there that night, Black said hesitantly. I tried to get you, but Hagrid said Dumbledore wanted me to go to my aunt, Harry cut in again. Yeah, I heard the story. Why'd you let him? Black looked between Harry and Snape, frowning as if he didn't understand the simple question. 30 seconds, Harry drawled, then I'm going to kill you. Black glanced towards the door quickly, but not quick enough for Harry to not notice. Nope, he said. Look, he smiled sharply at Black, who now looked nervous. Sorry about that, but I need answers. Harry, I'm sorry, Black stammered while Snape chuckled under his breath. I should have fought for you. Why didn't you? Harry asked again. 20 seconds, Black, he added when Black just hesitated. I couldn't go against Dumbledore, Black cried, his grey eyes wide. What was I supposed to do? Hide you away from him for the rest of your life? Harry got to his feet and took a couple steps closer to Black. He was happy to see the man stepped away from him. Yes, he said sharply. You were my godfather, that's exactly what you should have done. I couldn't fight against Dumbledore's orders, Black said. Nobody would have, you don't under. Snape would have, Harry said confidently. Snape wouldn't have let Dumbledore take me to my aunt's if he'd been my godfather, would he? Snape was a fucking Death Eater, Black spat. Your parents wouldn't have made him godfather if he had been the last choice on Earth. Don't talk about him like that, Harry said lightly, as he sent a neat spell blaze showed him towards Black's wrist. The sharp howl of pain accompanied by the audible snapping of the bone made Harry smile. He'd have to thank Blaze again for showing him that one. You might have missed it when you were destroying our stuff, but I've got a wicked sword up in my trunk. Harry smiled his most threatening smile, the one that made the older Slytherins leave him alone immediately. I can have it here faster than you can say Death Eater again. Black seemed surprised, which was rather dim of him considering Harry had told him Halloween night that he was going to kill him. Did he think that the fact he was only guilty of one deed, instead of two, meant Harry forgave him? You picked revenge over me, didn't you? He asked coolly. No, Harry, no, I swear I tried to get you first. But you didn't, Harry took another step closer. You left me alone, I was a baby, I was alone. I'm sorry, Black wailed, and he did truly look sorry. It just didn't matter. If I had known what it was going to be like for you, I never would have let Hagrid take you, pup, I swear. Harry paused and sifted through that statement. The Daily Prophet or Snape? He shot a dark look behind him towards Snape, who shook his head as he got to his own feet. Not Snape. What do you know about my life? Harry asked slowly. You don't know a single thing about me. Well, Black hesitated and looked pleadingly at Snape. Your funeral, mutt, Snape sneered from behind Harry. What do you mean, if you knew what it was like? Harry repeated when Black quit talking. What the fuck does that mean? Breathe, Snape murmured as Harry's magic was starting to go haywire again. I don't want to fucking breathe, Harry muttered, even as he took a few deep breaths to calm himself. It wouldn't help any if he accidentally killed Snape, because Black was an idiot. He steadied himself and then looked evenly at Black. What do you mean? Don't freak out, okay, Black said. Harry felt Snape shift behind him and knew that whatever Black was about to say, Harry very desperately did not want to hear it. I am an animagus, Black said, and we met. Harry watched as Black suddenly shifted into Grim, who he fed. Who was his friend? Who he told almost all his secrets to. Harry froze, shocked to his core. He told him everything, every weak, pathetic thought he had, talked about the memories the Dementors brought up, and about his boggart. Talked about being broken. Talked about the Dursleys, about the youth shelters, about last winter, and about everything was planning. Harry was so shocked he could barely talk. You stupid fucking dog. Harry lunged towards Grim, who transformed back to Black, and darted quickly towards the doorway. Harry, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. I'm going to kill you, Harry screamed. He threw the knife in his hand at Black's chest and cursed when it hit his arm instead. His aim wasn't as good left-handed. Snape, Black yelled, ducking from Harry's quickly fired curse. Are you going to help? Harry couldn't hear Snape's response, as he focused on making Black hurt, but he didn't think it sounded like he was going to step in. Harry, I'm Arg. Harry smiled as Black hit his knees and screamed. Must be soundproof, Harry mused out loud, his voice as cold as he felt in the moment. Thought maybe Lupin would try and come back in. I soundproofed it the moment Black transformed, Snape said just as casually as he had been so far. I would hate for your reunion with your godfather to be disrupted. Harry ended the spell on Black as he gave Snape a considering look. Did you know? Snape understood him at once, as Harry suspected only Snape could. I did not until this morning. Harry nodded as he turned back to Black. If Snape said he didn't know, then he didn't know. Black held a hand up towards Harry. His voice was raspy when he spoke. I deserved that I did. But Harry, listen, I know you didn't mean to tell me those things, but now that I know I can help you, okay? Help me? Harry looked incredulously at him. What help could I possibly need from you? He squeezed his right hand in a fist as he stared down at Black. He didn't know if it was the lack of Dementors, or the fact that he finally had someone to take all his cold anger out on, but he felt clearer than he had in weeks. Months even, probably. He didn't need help, certainly not from Black. What you said last night, it doesn't have to be like that, Harry, Black said as he struggled to stand back up. You're young, you've got so much to live for. Shut up, Harry warned him, his face heating as he realized Snape could hear everything Black was saying. Shut your mouth. Can we just talk, please? Black said. Harry ignored how his hopeful grey eyes looked just like Grimm's. I care so much about why. Shut up, Harry said. He backed away a few steps before Black could say anything else. Go away. Harry, Go away, Harry screamed. Shut your mouth and go away. Harry sent a quick jab of his magic towards the door to open it for Black. He needed him to leave now. Black looked over Harry's shoulder, presumably to where Snape was standing. Snape. Go Black, Snape said coldly. He does not want to talk. I would leave while you are able. Black edged towards the door, staring mournfully at Harry as he went. I'm sorry, Harry. I'll be here when you're ready to talk, he said. I love you, pup. Harry cut his leg with a quick flick of his magic as he went out the door. See, can you lock the door? He said, panting from the anger he could feel swirling in his chest. Make it so he can't come back in. Gladly. Harry waited a moment while he watched Snape lock and ward the door before he collapsed to the floor. He didn't think he even had the energy to kill Black right now. He felt shaky and exposed in a way he wasn't used to feeling. He tricked me, he said quietly. He fucking tricked me, made me think he was just a dog. He did, Snape agreed solemnly, as he sat cross-legged across from Harry. I said a lot of things, Harry admitted. I didn't know it was him. I know, Snape said. May I see your hand? Snape's sudden change in topic threw Harry off. He scooted backwards until he felt the desk against his back. No. You are injured, Harry. Give me your hand. Harry purposefully flexed his left hand. It's fine, he said. Your right hand, if you please. Did he tell you I was hurt? Because he's a liar, Harry said. He hated that stupid dog, hated Black for knowing all these things about him, hated him for seeing him last night, seeing him weak and, oh God, he'd cried on that git. Harry cursed himself for not obliviating him when he had the chance. Stupid. I saw it was injured last night, Snape said, pulling Harry back to the conversation he'd rather not have. I would like you to remove the glamour and either heal it yourself or allow me to do so. Harry stared at Snape's calm dark eyes as he lifted his right hand. Black already knew. Why should Black know and not Snape? Snape wouldn't laugh, wouldn't mock him or call him weak. Stop hiding, he ordered his hand. The glamour disappeared easily as Harry felt the magic drawing itself back inside him. He didn't bother looking at his hand in favor of watching Snape. He knew what it looked like. His fingers were bruised and swollen, the knuckles scraped, cracked and bloody. He thought he'd probably torn up a nerve in one of his fingers. It hadn't felt right all day, but he'd thrived on that pain, savored it. It kept him feeling sharp as he'd planned on how to tell Snape about Theo's dad. I'm going to summon Murtlap essence unless you would rather heal it yourself, Snape said quietly. I don't think I can right now, Harry admitted. My magic is tired, or else I would have just killed him. Snape hummed as he summoned the Murtlap essence and beckoned Harry to move closer to him. It would be foolish to kill him at Hogwarts, he said as Harry slowly inched closer. It would be a shame to be rid of the Dementors only to be sent directly to Azkaban. I wouldn't go to Azkaban, Harry said as he offered Snape his hand. Oh, Snape dapped some of the essence on Harry's knuckles and Harry hissed between his teeth as they burned before the skin starting knitting itself back together. Did you have a grand escape plan? Perhaps transform into a rat and move in with Ronald? Harry snorted lightly at Snape's sarcastic tone. I'd hide at our house and make you secret keeper, he said confidently. Nobody'd find me then, would they? They would not, Snape agreed. Deep breath now as I heal the breaks. Harry watched curiously as Snape tapped his hand twice, and the bones snapped and reset themselves back in the correct position. He flexed his hand, and was both relieved and disappointed to see that it was good as new. Thanks, he said begrudgingly. You can thank me by not doing it again, Snape said as he disappeared the supplies. I am sure that there are many more deserving subjects for your anger than yourself. Harry shrugged uncomfortably. What all did Black tell you, he asked cautiously, before I got here? He told Grim a lot of things. Snape knew most of them, but there were some things he didn't. He told me you intended to end your life today, Snape said. I will kill him, Harry swore to himself. Some way, somehow, I will kill him. And you know he's lying, right? Harry asked, a desperate edge creeping in his tone. He's a liar, Snape. He can't be trusted. I am inclined to believe him in this instance, Snape said slowly. I believe the Dementors have had a terribly adverse effect on your mental health, and I believe that your self-abuse was a sign I should not have overlooked. I am not self-abusing, Harry scoffed weakly. I got mad and I hit a tree and I'm fine now. Snape made a noise of disbelief. If I searched your dorm right now, I would not find a letter addressed to be read after you death. Snape guessed with an accuracy so sharp Harry felt like he couldn't breathe for a moment. No, Harry lied. I dunno why you'd think that. I'm sorry, Snape apologized before flicking his wand again. Harry was confused for a moment, unsure what was supposed to have happened before a parchment flew beneath the door straight to Snape's hand. Dear Luna, he read aloud with a small frown aimed at the parchment, as his eyes quickly scanned it over. Give that here, Harry cried, longing for the parchment. That's Private Snape. Snape let him rip the paper from his hands and Harry quickly ran, and threw it in the lit fire. His face was so red he knew Snape could see it across the room. That was private, he hissed. It's none of your fucking business. I disagree, Snape said. His voice was still steady even though his eyes looked soft now. I think that your decision to end your life is very much my business. I wasn't going to, Harry sputtered. I was just upset about the Dementors, and they're gone now, so it's fine now. Yeah. It is not fine, Snape said. I cannot ignore the fact that you felt so desperate that you believed your only option was to end your life. I'm not going to end my life, Harry scowled. I'm okay, I wasn't thinking, but I was going to talk to you. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? Me to come talk to you. You had a plan, Snape said flatly. You wrote a letter bequeathing your belongings to your friends and had a plan, Harry. Harry tried to think of a way to get them to drop the subject as Snape got to his feet and slowly walked around to his desk. Snape looked over at Harry, and he thought he saw a flash of fondness in his eyes before he summoned his Patronus. "What are you doing?" Harry asked nervously. "Harry and I will be unavailable until at least January 5th when school resumes," he said, ignoring Harry altogether. "If you would kindly watch over my students, it would be appreciated." Harry snuck over to the door while Snape was sending off his Patronus. He growled when he realized it was still locked with Snape's wards. "We are returning home for the remainder of the break," Snape said as he watched Harry struggle with the door. "I believe we could both use a break from the castle." Oh, Harry dropped his hand and felt stupid all of a sudden. Snape had been acting weird, so he was worried when Snape was calling up his Patronus that he had something horrible planned. But going home for a week and a half, that wasn't horrible. That would be wicked. "Okay, Brill, let me go grab Sevi my trunk and tell my friends, yeah." "No need," Snape said as he scrawled something on a piece of parchment. "We will send Mavis for your owl and trunk, and I will send Miss Bones a message letting her know of our departure. If you would step through the flue, then I will follow behind you." "Okarai," Harry said slowly. Snape was acting off, subdued maybe. "I'll see you in a minute at home," he checked. "You will," Snape said, his eyes calm and reassuring. Harry tried to ignore the part of his brain that was making him think he was trapped, and decided to trust Snape. Harry grabbed a pinch of the flue powder and called out their address and the password, Spinner's End, Sevi. He closed his eyes as he whirled and twirled through different fireplaces before being spat out in their sitting room. He backed away quickly from the fireplace, not wanting to be hit when Snape arrived. Snape was being weird. Harry didn't know if he just accepted his explanation for the mad letter he'd wrote for Luna this morning, or if maybe he didn't care. No, not that one. Snape would care, he already said as much. Maybe he just understood about the Dementors. Harry had went to his office this morning planning on finding a way to explain about Theo's dad without breaking his vow. Instead, he was faced with Black and a mad story about dead men who weren't really dead, and secret keepers and animagi and stupid fucking dogs with grey eyes. He had sort of forgotten all about his plans until Snape brought it back up. He wasn't sure if his plans changed, or if they were just delayed now. His head felt clear of almost all the fog that had been filling it for weeks. And he'd have to kill Sirius Black before he died. He knew almost all his secrets now. He could be telling Lupin right now for all Harry knew. Harry was packing in front of the bookshelves, making plans, when Snape gracefully stepped from the flue. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "No," Harry murmured, distracted. "Do you believe me when I say that nobody who wishes you harm will be able to penetrate our wards?" Harry stopped packing and looked curiously at Snape. "Suppose so," he tilted his head as he studied Snape's casual stance and his tone. "Why? Then will we fight over you relinquishing your knives to me for the remainder of the break, or will you trust in your complete protection here?" Harry scoffed and resumed his packing. "I'm not giving up my knives," he said. "You've lost the plot." "Accio Harry Potter's knives." Harry looked up, startled, as both his knives went flying from his pockets to Snape's hands. "What the hell?" he cried. "Give those back, Snape." "No," Snape said. He tapped the knives both with his wand, and Harry shouted as they disappeared. "It would be terribly irresponsible of me to allow you to carry those at present time." Harry stared open-mouthed at him. "What is this, what the hell?" "You may have those back when I no longer believe you are a threat to yourself," Snape said calmly. "I'm not a threat to myself," Harry sputtered. "What is this, some sort of lockdown?" "It is," Snape said as he sat on the recliner. "I assume you would prefer to remain here rather than stay at St. Mungo's." Harry paled at the threat. He wasn't going to the hospital. "I'm not crazy," he said as he clenched his jaw. "That stuff I said, I didn't mean it, and it's your fault anyway." "My fault?" Snape raised a surprised brow at that. "How do you determine I am at fault for Black charading as a stray dog?" "It's your fault I even said that stuff," Harry said, his voice getting heated as he pinned this on Snape. "You told me to talk to someone, and I did, and then he told you what I said." "Ah, and it is of course my fault that you told Black of your intent to kill yourself," Snape said with the faintest sneer. That's not what I said," Harry yelled. "You're making me sound crazy when I was just talking. I didn't mean it." Harry took a deep breath and looked around the room quickly. He could go out the front door, but where would he go? The flu was in here, and even though he used to apparate around London, he hadn't done it in a long time, nor for so long of a distance. I would appreciate you not running out, as this is your home, Snape said, once again guessing with an uncanny precision Harry's exact thoughts. I changed my mind, Harry said, thinking quickly. Can we go back to Hogwarts? No. No, what? Harry stared at Snape, not understanding. What's going on? You and I are going to go visit the mind healer. You and I are not, he sneered with a mocking laugh. You can go if you want. You can go to the mind healer, or you can go to St. Mungo, Snape said. Harry blinked as Snape's threat registered. Who are you? Harry demanded. I thought you were my friend. I am, you arrogant brat, Snape hissed. And as your friend I am telling you that you are going to end up in a small coffin if you do not get help. Harry blanched at Snape's acidic tone and shook his head. This was too much. This whole day was too much. Can we go tomorrow? He said quietly as he thought through his options. I'm tired and this day has been weird, yeah. Snape stared at him in the same way Harry usually studies people. You will go without a fight tomorrow morning, he said, his gaze steely. Yes, Harry lied. He'd find a way to get out of it between now and then, but if he had to go then anything was better than St. Mungo's. He knew a couple street kids who got taken to hospitals and never came back. Harry wasn't going to be forced in some crazy hospital and left there to rot. I apologize, Harry, Snape sighed. Would you be willing to vow it on your magic? Harry cleared the irritation, anger, and annoyance off his face, and put on the bored mask that Snape himself taught him. Of course, Professor, he said coolly. I swear on my magic that I'll go to the fucking mind healer's office tomorrow. Harry flinched to feel the cold vow sinking into his skin. Thank you, Snape said, offering Harry a smile. Would you like to get lunch? Nope, Harry spat. I'll be in my room. He stormed up the stairs and slammed his door as hard as he could. He vowed he'd go to the mind healer's office, and he would. Snape couldn't make him fucking talk, though. Chapter 17, Session 1. Family Session 1, 27th of December 1993. Severus, come in, have a seat, and this must be Harry. Michael smiled at the brooding teenager skulking in the doorway as his guardian, Severus Snape, took a seat on the sofa in his office. He had met Severus before when the man came to him seeking answers for his ward's moods. Michael had been fairly confident in his tentative diagnosis of manic-depressive illness for the teen, and he would be lying if he said he wasn't eager to explore that more. He had never had a patient as young as Harry who, from what Severus had said, displayed such obvious signs. Harry, come sit, Severus said. Michael could hear the irritation in the man's voice and assumed, based on Harry's narrow-eyed glare, that coming to therapy had not been Harry's idea. Harry stalked over to the couch and sat on the edge. He crossed his legs and adopted a terrific look of boredom. Harry wouldn't be his first reluctant teen patient, and he wouldn't be his last. So, Michael clapped his hands together and smiled at the pair. Tell me, what made you guys decide to follow up in therapy? Over the summer, Severus had made it sound like Harry would never consent to therapy. Michael had worried at the time that Severus needed to push more as the guardian as Harry went untreated for his ailments. So he was surprised, and pleased of course, when his assistant informed him that Severus had booked multiple appointments over the next week and a half for Harry. Severus looked at the tight-lipped boy next to him and sighed. Harry's depression has gotten worse recently, he said. I would prefer it if he told you about his difficulties himself, though I will inform you if he chooses not to. Michael ignored the threatening hiss that Severus gave to Harry and gave the young man a reassuring smile. Alrighty then, Harry, I know therapy seems like a crock. Who wants to talk about their feelings, eh? He chuckled lightly as his own overused joke before getting serious, but it can sometimes help to have a sounding board for your thoughts and feelings. Unlike most teenage boys, Harry did not roll his eyes and huff out an argument. He just stared at Michael as if he were a slug beneath his trainers. Michael politely watched him for a few minutes, quite used to the uncomfortable silence of reluctant clients, before turning back to Severus. All right, well, Severus, why don't you go ahead and tell me how Harry's depression has impacted you? Me? Severus looked surprised that he was being brought into the conversation. Michael found that it usually sparked conversation from most clients when their parents or guardians set a good example. This session is for Harry, Severus said with a roll of his eyes. It might help him if he could hear how you've been impacted, Michael pointed out logically, undeterred by the cool tone Severus used. So what makes you believe Harry is depressed? Severus sighed again and looked incredibly put upon by the question. Harry has had a noticeable lack of interest in life recently. He has not been sleeping, he picks at his food, he does not do the activities he used to enjoy, and he has developed other concerning behaviors since about mid-November. Michael nodded along as Severus listed the behaviors he has seen. He agreed that it seemed like a classic description of depression. The length of time surprised him, though. His other manic-depressive patients experienced bouts of mild to severe depression that typically lasted 2 to 4 weeks. Michael wondered if there were any outside causes that would be lengthening the time Harry has spent in his stage. "Have there been any recent changes in either of your lives?" he asked. "Anything that may have been an influence in these behaviors?" Harry glared at Severus, who, interestingly, glared back at him. He made a note of a possible need for an increase in affection in the household. "Harry's godfather was recently released from prison," Severus said. "It could be a factor." "Or it could be the Dementors," Harry muttered sullenly. "Dementors?" Michael asked, interested in the term. "What is Dementors?" Severus gave Harry an even darker glare, and Michael marked out his previous note. Their household had a definite need for an increase in affection. "It is a slang term that the students use for prison guards," Severus said slowly. "We had quite a few of them at our school and they did not create a positive environment." Harry snorted derisively at this, amused by Severus' description. "Why were there prison guards at your school?" Michael asked curiously. "You both reside at a boarding school during the school term, right?" "Correct," Severus said. "Over the summer Harry's godfather had escaped from prison, and they sent the prison guards to the school to safeguard it before his name was recently cleared." Michael made a small note of Severus' slight sneer as he discussed Harry's godfather. S appears to feel threatened by the godfather's claim to Harry. "And you believe the prison guards made you feel worse, Harry?" Michael couldn't actually imagine a peaceful environment that would be conducive to learning with prison guards roaming around. "Yep," Harry said, blinking his face back to his previously bored mask. "It must have been stressful, the situation with your godfather. Would you like to talk about that?" Harry curled his lip at him and sat back silently. "Okay then," Michael turned back to Severus with a smile. "If Harry doesn't feel up to talking just yet, why don't you tell me about those other concerning behaviors?" Severus gave Harry an apologetic look before turning a solemn face to Michael. "Harry has been self-harming," he said bluntly, and he wrote a suicide note. Michael's eyebrows flew up to his hairline. Why would this not be the first thing Severus brought up? Despite S caring for H's mental health, he prioritizes his bond with H over his safety. Harry began hissing at the man. His cheeks were red and his gaze was furious. "H feels betrayed by S bringing up self-harm and SI," he scrawled quickly on his notepad. "Harry," he says gently, "is this true?" Harry ends his sibilant hissing and turns his angry glare on Michael. "No," he spits out, "he's a liar." Severus snorts. "I thought my honesty was my one redeeming quality." "You don't have any redeeming qualities," Harry says hatefully. Michael takes careful notes as the two begin arguing heatedly. "Oh," Severus drawls, "I suppose you're free to reach out to your godfather if you would care for a change of custody." S should not bring up H's guardianship status during disagreements, Michael writes quickly. "Maybe you should fuck off," Harry says, "you and him both." "Maybe you should watch your language," Severus growls. H does not like his godfather any more than S does. Since he keeps coming up, Michael interrupts the two, keeping his composure despite the identical glares being aimed his direction. "Would either of you like to discuss the obvious animosity towards Harry's godfather?" "No," Severus growled. Harry perked up and smiled innocently, a look Michael may have believed if his eyes weren't suddenly twinkling mischievously. "Sure," he offered. "Snape hates him because he made his life hell in school. They were classmates, you know. But then Snape went out of his way to clear his name. Wasn't that awfully kind of him?" Michael holds down his amusement at Harry's careful manipulations. He found a topic Severus was uncomfortable discussing and threw the other man under the bus in an attempt to avoid discussing the suicide note and self-harm. H displays possible signs of sociopathy to be explored in individual session. "So why do you dislike him?" Michael asks Harry. Harry blinked at him, momentarily disarmed by the question. "Left me alone, didn't he? Went and landed himself in prison when I was a baby and didn't give a damn about me. H. Obvious signs of attachment abandonment issues. That must be incredibly frustrating, Michael empathized. Did you tell him how much it hurt to be abandoned by him? Told him I was going to kill him, Harry shrugged. Figured it's the same difference in it. Does H display signs of murderous thoughts or trying to get a shock reaction? Michael wrote quickly while maintaining a calm demeanor. Shut up, Severus hissed. S believes H has intent to harm others, covering for him. Thought you wanted me to talk, Harry smiled again. The boy was incredibly manipulative. Michael checked the time and felt a small amount of relief that there was only 20 minutes remaining in the session. I'm glad you're talking, Harry, Michael said honestly, but I'd like to talk more about the note you wrote. I don't see a note, Harry said flatly. Suppose it doesn't exist then, yeah. Dear Luna, I hope you aren't mad at me. I think you will be and I'm sorry. Shut you p, Harry screamed at Severus, his face now a dark red color. That was private. Severus just quirked an eyebrow at him. I thought it never existed. H does not handle self-perceived betrayal well. Harry, Michael said gently, interrupting the oncoming explosion. Why are you so upset right now? Why am I upset? Harry looked at Michael incredulously. His green eyes were hazy with what Michael thought was probably anger and some other unprocessed emotion, shame maybe. Because he invaded my privacy, read a letter to my friend, and was going to quote the bloody thing to you. Michael nodded as Harry vented. Teens were incredibly private people, yet they had no understanding of why privacy must sometimes be broken. So you feel betrayed by Severus right now, he prodded gently. PFT, Harry scoffed, I don't feel anything. Michael withheld a sigh. H. Denny's any feelings aside from anger? He turned his attention to Severus. They were down to 10 minutes, and he couldn't end the session without an assurance of Harry's safety. What measures are in place to prevent any possible attempts of Harry hurting himself? We have returned home, where I am able to monitor his activities more closely. Severus said, both men ignoring the teen's scoff. I have also taken his knives from him. Knives, Michael interrupted, surprised. Does Harry routinely carry knives? Severus had said before that Harry had been homeless for quite some time. It wasn't an unusual behavior in homeless youth. Protection was needed badly in the streets. If Harry was still carrying them, it displayed a huge red flag that he was still feeling continuously threatened. Safety issues, school or home? He does, Severus said evenly. Until now I have been unwilling to fight with him over their use. Now that you're worried about his safety because you care about his health, Michael said, hopping to enlighten Harry to Severus' concerns. Go ahead, what other measures have you put in place? Severus looked carefully down at Harry, before turning a blank face back towards Michael. I believe removing his weapons, monitoring his behavior, and dragging him here is the most I can do. S likely has cameras or other monitoring equipment, unwilling to discuss in front of H. Michael gave him an understanding nod. Harry, do you see why Severus is concerned? Nope. Michael wasn't sure if Harry was being purposefully obtuse, or if he believed Severus had no reason to be concerned over a suicide note. All right, gentlemen, he said with a friendly, if a bit strained, smile. I would like to see you both back this week, perhaps for individual sessions. The look Harry gave both Severus and Michael clearly showed his intent on making another appearance. But Harry was a former street kid, and Michael knew a few ways to convince them himself. Harry, if you'd rather Severus just come to sessions and inform me of the issues himself, that's okay, he said cheerfully. You don't have to be here for us to discuss you if it makes you uncomfortable. Oh, I'll be here, Harry immediately said. He gave Severus a sharp smile. But remember, Snape, this was your idea. Severus is only concerned about you, Michael said gently, and therapy is a safe place to explore any problems you're having in your life. The timer went off and Harry and Severus both stood immediately. Michael offered them both his hand and was bemused as Harry made an odd remark on his way out the door. Suppose I can talk about the basilisk next time then, since it's so safe here. Michael didn't hear the exact words Snape responded with, but he recognized the irritated tone of exhaustion that many parents he's encountered in his work have. He suspected that Severus had quite a bit more to be exhausted by than most, though.